Let me get you up on screen. Hello, Nobbel. Good to have you here again. Look, we
Hello there.
actually have like an official overlay and stuff this time. It's not just their ripped camera lagged out on some part of the monitor. I know. All for you, man. All for you.
I was just talking to the person on Snapchat who made these things for you.
Were you?
They were like, let me know how you find the overlays. And I'm like, how the heck did that happen? Yeah,
True.
yeah.
Jeff, yeah. He does good work, and he works for cookies. I don't even need to pay him. That's the great part.
There you go.
So, here we are. Lots to talk about. Not that I'm sure many people don't know who you are, but for those poor unfortunate souls, why don't you introduce yourself? Let us know who you are, what you do, what you like to focus on in WoW, and we'll get going.
Well, it's not too much balls for one show, right? Howdy, everybody. I'm Nobbel, and I am really into the Warcraft lore. Once upon a time, I decided to dedicate a YouTube channel to covering every bit of lore that Warcraft has to offer. And we are now 8 years into it. one day it will be finished. But yeah, I really like the lore and talk about the lore and discussing the lore and Warcraft lore. That's what I'm here for.
And you play Red? Do you still play Red Paladin?
Yeah,
Okay,
still play
good.
Red Paladin since Wrath of the Lich King.
Good. Oh, damn. You stuck through it, okay? All right,
Casual
so
life. I don't have to concern myself with those things.
true. I unfortunately can't play what I like. I mean, the concept of fun in this game are just not things that really coincide for me these days anymore. So it is what it is. That being said, that being said, you and I talked before the show. Obviously, kind of like a little road trip we're going to go down. So, chat for everybody watching. Just to kind of lead you through it real quick, which Nobbel, of course, will be the one leading it through us through most of it. We're gonna start with like a recap, then we'll talk a bit about 9.1 intro stuff. Then we'll talk about all from a lore perspective, by the way, no system stuff today. Dungeon, and then Korthius / Dreadlord stuff, and then raid and what that might imply with the jailer's kind of most beloved pets or anti-beloved pets, I suppose. Guys like we heard about Garrosh, etc. Then we're gonna talk. Then we're gonna watch the cinematic. We're gonna talk about obviously the hot topic, Jailer, Sylvanas, Anduin stuff. Then some first ones talk, and then we'll see what Master Nobbel thinks. We're gonna go from here, or what he'd like to see rather, with lore. And then to wrap up, we'll grab a few questions from everybody that isn't Aggie on account for saying she likes Nobbel more than me, and that'll be the show. So,
Do you want them to lie? You
uh,
can't make them lie in your chat, Sloot. Come on now.
I can make him do whatever I want. So, that being said, we're going to kind of try to guide this with some Wowhead articles as we go along here. If the font is too small, it might be. I will, here. There we go. Boost it up a bit on the screen. Perfect. And we're going to start with Nobbel's page, actually, where he kind of listed a bunch of intro and lore and where we stand now. So, Mr. Nobbel, if you will, where do we stand now with lore, Denathrius and all that, and where are we headed in 9.1?
Right, where do we stand now? Well, we went into the Shadowlands because our leaders got kidnapped by the Mawsworn. We had to go after them. Sylvanas had shattered the Helm of Domination, shattered the veil between this world and the next. And we were like, let's party. Bolvar, help us out. And we crash landed into the Maw. The Maw is supposed to be this domain that is inescapable, but for some mysterious reason, there was this relic, a relic of the so-called First Ones that responded to us. And we were able to get out of there. Fortunately, we had to leave our leaders behind, and our adventures into the Shadowlands could begin. We ended up in the beautiful Oribos, which is like the sorting city, and we visited the zones, we dealt with their problems, we met with their leaders, we proved ourselves worthy. We even dipped into the Maw from time to time, and we went into Torga's Tower of the Damned, where we saved our leaders. We saved Bane and Jaina and Thrall, except for Anduin. Poor Anduin, still stuck in the tower for all this time. But we did get some information from Bolvar, who gazed into the Tower of Torghast to see what was going on. And we find out this whole plot between Sylvanas and Anduin, and that they want him as a weapon. On the other end, as our adventures go through, we made ready for our very first raid, which was Castle Nafria, with Sire Denethrius. Sire Denethrius was going to be our first boss. This is a so-called Eternal One. And the Eternal Ones are the rulers of these domains. You got in Bastion, you got the Archon. In Ardenweald, you got the Winter Queen. Maldraxxus has a missing Primus, the Rune Carver. and the Venfier Revendreth have Sire Denethrius. Now, Sire Denethrius decided that it would be a really good idea to ally with the jailer. He's been stockpiling a whole bunch of anima, because anima is like your experience that you bring with you as a soul. It keeps the zones running. It keeps the prison of the jailer nice and tight. It keeps him in there. But there's been a drought ever since something in the Legion period. There was this massive red attack, and the Arbiter that is supposed to sort all these souls into their individual domains, it's shut down, and instead all the souls just go into the maw. So that anima that didn't show up in all these zones that caused a whole bunch of trouble, so Sire Denethrius is like a whole bunch of it, and he didn't share it with us. So we scraping all this anima together to upgrade our covenant, to get our transmog or whatnot. He had a whole bunch of it, and he just sent it down to his buddy the jailer, which made us really, really mad. Thankfully, in Revendreth, there were still those that remembered the original purpose of Revendreth, which is pay for your sins. We allied with those, the sinful rebellions, Prince Renefal, and we took the battle to the Sire, who, very naughty, was like, get on your knees, vermin, and crawl your way to me. You will never defeat me. I am Sire Denethrius. But then, in a much more sulky and temptationous voice. But eventually, we did manage to kick the absolute crap out of him. And they decided, or well, they didn't actually decide it. The blade that the Denethrius carried, Remornia, she was like, Master, oh no, I will save you. So she sucked in like the essence of the Denethrius. And we were like, well, if he's going to be stuck inside of a blade, we might as well use the blade as his prison. Took that sword, Remornia, and we had like this Naru ally in Revendreth, and we were like, well, put a bunch of mirrors around it, a whole bunch of light. It's a vampire, doesn't like light that much, and that will keep him contained. And that's where we are right now with the story.
Well, how many times have you rehearsed this?
I just spoke about the lore a couple of times.
Hey, that's totally fine with me. So, since we're here with the story now, 9.1, which obviously we've seen this past weekend for BlizzCon, leads us in a certainly much more, almost surprisingly to me at least, already quite focused on the jailer and Sylvanas and Anduin. We'll get to those in detail, but a lot of Maw-related activity, take it to the jailer, things like that, which, at least historically in expansions, they would present the bad guy, and then we'd go through a whole bunch of raids and whatnot and get to the bad guy at the end of the expansion. So what's your take on we're already kind of like throwing it to the jailer? We're not going to fight the jailer yet. That will still be at the end of the expansion, but we're already going into, his domain right away.
Yeah, I was as surprised as you were, to be honest, because just as you said, if we are mirroring Wrath the Lich King time period, then here is the Lich King, the jailer, taunting us along the way, and that will be your main course at the end of it all. But instead they decided, we build up these mysteries of the jailer want to accomplish something, Sylvanas allied with him, they're doing all these things, and we're just going to reveal much more of that in the 9.1 patch. And to be honest, I'm quite excited for it because they are building up some really cool things. So to learn more about that is going to be a lot of fun. And then, of course, the question as to where will the story flow afterwards. And they've been pretty much hyping up like the end confrontation 9.1. This will change everything. I'm excited to see what exactly they have for the next trip into 9.1 and beyond, considering we're now already dealing with the jailer and all that kind of stuff.
Well, we'll talk about speculation and stuff at the end, because I'm curious to get definitely your thought about, two different theories about where we go after 9.1, but let's focus on 9.1 first. So with 9.1, we're getting, as expected in a major patch, a bunch of new stuff, right? So we're getting a new zone, kind of a new zone. It's an expansion of the Maw, the current zone. We're getting a new dungeon. The mega dungeon's coming out like we've had the past expansion. Tazavesh. We're getting the raid, and then obviously a slew of Covenant transmogs and systems changes and collectibles. I think most important of everything is we're going to be fighting a pirate dragon. That's of course very notable. Infinite pirate dragon. So of all the stuff coming out in the patch, we're not going to cover systems and all that kind of stuff today and collectibles, unless you have a particular collectible you're interested in, Nobbel, then feel free to let us know. But we're going to focus on the lore aspect of what the patch is bringing. So as I kind of laid out earlier, one of them that's, not too much, like I think you said so yourself, there's not too much to talk about. The dungeon, Tazavish, the Veiled Market, which is where a lot of these kind of, traders and black market ethereals and everything is going to lie. Anything you want to talk about there, or like, what are your thoughts on it?
Well, in a later interview, they gave a bigger picture as to what this actually is, and they were speaking about like this barge that's going to be connected to Oribos, the capital city. And on this barge, these brokers come together, all kinds of different cartels and whatnot, to trade with each other. So you're going to see a whole bunch of weird, freaky things that they've gathered across the cosmos. That's the first part, and we're gonna get like entrance into that. And then the second part they described as a heist. It's going to be this powerful artifact. The press kit mentioned artifact from Azeroth. In an interview, they mentioned like Azerothian characters, their backgrounds and whatnot. So in essence, you're going to be following a broker that's going to be running through these portals, and you're going to follow them afterwards. And then you're going to end up in new domains and new zones. And what's really cool is that they can get really, really creative with this. There's a small side quest in Maldraxxus, which you find out like, okay, this is the way that demons or whatever you fight in the pit in Maldraxxus, how these things end up in the Shadowlands. Because the brokers, they go out to the different domains and they look at stuff and they're like, well, that's nice to kidnap. That's nice to put into a fighting pit. We'll just bring that with us. But it's supposed to be this whole different planet. So on an art style, creative section, it can go quite wild. And as you said, the Infinite Pirate Dragon, they've kept their mouth closed on what exactly that's going to mean. But I'm curious to find out, like, what would push an infinite dragon into the pirate life? Like, have they been always having that dream and they walked up to Modusant and they were like, look, I know they were messing with the time waves, right? But I really want to be a pirate. Or did they later down the line become a pirate for reasons? And, gonna find out, yo-ho and all that.
What if it's a pirate that got, like, polymorphed?
A dragon. No, it has to be an infinite dragon, because the infinite dragons, that's the fun part. They're like corrupted bronze dragons, and they've like abused their powers to subvert their mortality, therefore they are infinite dragons. And their whole shtick is to like mess with time and make sure that things happen the way that they wanted to. And one of them was one day like, F it, I'm gonna be a pirate. They have power over time. Why would they be a pirate, Sloop?
I mean,
what could motivate them to be a pirate?
Plundering booty.
Plundering booty. Must be it.
Of course.
There's a woman involved.
I mean, or guy. Whatever booty you want to go for.
True.
Good
dragon booty.
A good linking between these two, and something we didn't really talk about pre-show, but I think is a good way to start talking about the Maw and Korthia, etc. But linking these kind of brokers, ethereals, and the Maw is Venari, who I'm a big fan of. I love her voice acting. I think it's a familiar actress. I haven't heard her before. I think something to do with Overwatch, but she obviously will have her storyline developed. She's of course related to this kind of cartel. They're after her, etc. What are your thoughts on Venari? Where are we moving forward with Venari? What kind of impact do you think she's gonna have on things?
The brokers in general are really shady. Because if you walk around Oribos, they talk about knowing like buildings from the first ones, similar to Oribos, stuff that we've never seen before. In Castle Nafria, there's a boss fight with a broker that's pretty much just plundering the Nefris' stockpile of powerful weapons. And he's like, okay, well, it was fun fighting you all. I got my stuff. I'm out. Bye-bye. Venari is asking us to bring her a whole bunch of relics from the Maw, a whole bunch of power and Stygia. And as we see in one of the final quests that we got at the start, is that Stygia can be turned into an extremely powerful weapon. So now, as we go back into the Maw, for those wondering, like, okay, we're going back into the Maw, what's the deal with that? We have been working on building up our covenants. We've increased their power. And these covenants are going to unite to take the fight to the jailer. We're going to go into the Maw. We're going to build new territory. But because we also bring in these covenants, territory that we know right now is also going to change. There's going to be events. We're going to learn on how to cleanse ourselves of the Eye of the Jailer. So no longer having to worry about, oh no, we're on 5 stacks of Eye of the Jailer. We're going to die now. We're actually going to, well, the Maw has been really scary right now, and we're going to make it ours. And in the case of Vanari, I was curious, like, is she just going to sit back and let us do the work? But they have said she's going to play her parts. She's going to help us out. There's going to be new upgrades for Torghast or whatnot. In the case of Vanari, she doesn't seem to be down with the rest of the brokers. She has this background history with the other brokers where they were sent into the Maw, a domain where you're not supposed to escape from, inescapable. And the brokers were like, well, there's profit to be had there. Just send a team in. That team went in and pretty much all of them wiped out, except for Vanari, who was smart enough to figure out how the Maw works. We then show up, we team up with her, we earn her trust over time. And then the cartel is still looking for her, so they're asking us questions about Vanari, like, have you found a broker in the Maw? What exactly is she up to? How can we murder her? Will you help us out? And we're like, no, Vanari is friends. We're not going to be betraying Vanari. And that storyline is apparently going to continue. So if I had to make a guess in that direction, I think Vanari in 9.1 is just going to be another vendor-esque, oh, look, the Maw's really swapping up. There's opportunity here for me. I will help you out if you help me out. And then maybe if later down the line, they're like, we want to go back into the broker storytelling and we want to dive into why they're so shady and what they've been doing and what they've been gathering, Vanari would be a great way in, as in, oh yeah, this is the background information about people, this is where we come from, because all of that has not really been explained so far.
What do you think the chances are Vanari's using us and will double cross us, and she's actually an evil presence?
I think don't ever. I don't know. At first, I was like, "Oh, Vanari is really shady," but she seems to be the one that seems to be our link, especially since in 9.1 she's also going to help us out and not just sit back. We have worked really hard to earn her trust as well, and she tells us, like, at the end of the day, betrayal is inevitable, but don't betray me. I think as long as our things line up, she will be more than loyal. But is she capable of stabbing us in the back? Yeah, for sure. Like similar to Revyon, I would say, like morality. Like they have their own goals in mind, and as long as we line up with that, they'll be more than happy to team up with us. But if we go against them, they'll be more than happy to kick us to the curb.
So what you're saying is Vanari's Wrathion confirmed.
Yeah,
okay.
True.
Of course.
You missed him, but he's there, and he's gonna show up in the case that we need to save Anduin. And then he's like, "You punched me in the face, now I get to punch you." And then Anduin turns back. It's simple.
And he's like, "Aha! I'm actually an infinite time dragon."
Yar!
Shiver me timbers. Okay, so Vanari's a good segue then into talking about, well, the Maw you've already touched on, but more importantly, the new addition coming to the Maw, Korthia. That is, well, you'll know better than me, but essentially a floating, chained-on part of the Maw that the jailer rips down and, well, adds to the Maw for reasons that I'm sure you will let me know in a moment. And furthermore, as you said, and as we found out on TSZ from Jason and Spencer with their interviews, Dreadlord involvement will come back into play. A lot of, skepticism about Dreadlords and talk about Dreadlords historically and fandom of Dreadlords, really. So, school us.
All right. What's happening here? Korthia. So as we've been gaining power and we've been empowering our covenants and whatnot, the jailer's not been sitting still. The jailer wants to break out of the Maw for insert reason here. It seems like he wants to consume the entire universe, death wash over it all. And when it comes to the cosmic Warcraft universe, there is a balance that needs to be maintained. But in order to break out, he needs knowledge, information, and keys. And in the case of Korthia, it's like a city of secrets, they describe it. It's going to be connected to, or it's going to look similar to an Oribos, except Oribos is like this cylinder city-esque. This is going to be more like a laid out kind of area. And in order to bring Korthia into the Maw, he shut out these chains. The land was dragged back in. It's also an indication that the jailer is more and more breaking out. Like over time, he's gaining more power. What was once supposed to be this inescapable prison is now dragging in land masses for exploration. And that violent crash into the Maw is going to make it so that this land of Korthia, only the strongest creatures are able to survive that crash landing. These are creatures that will be able to go toe-to-toe with the forces of the jailer. He goes in there for more information on the first ones, because not only is there native wildlife, not only is there an Oribos-esque city, there's also attendants and guardians and secrets and origins of the Shadowlands and the workings of this domain. The jailer wants information. So he's going to go in there, and we are going to go in there. And I assume that we're going to earn the trust of these attendants that are left behind. And slowly but surely, we'll find out more on the jailer's plans and what the Shadowlands is. I mean, we all have our ideas and speculation, but I'll focus on what we know right now, and then we can talk about speculation later. Yeah, they're gonna learn. They're gonna teach us more about the workings of the Shadowlands. And then in an interview, they said, indeed, at the end of the chapters, we're gonna see the return of the Dreadlords. And why is that cool? Why is that important? Well, once upon a time, we were told in the Chronicles that Dreadlords come from the Twisting Nether, meaning that you have this domain of death with the jailer and all that, and then you got this domain of disorder where the Dreadlords come from. In the Shadowlands, and this goes back to the beta times, there is a book that you can find in Revendreth, and this book is called Enemy Infiltration Preface. In that book, whoever wrote this book, there are notes about how the domain of death has infiltrated the domain of disorder, the domain of order with the Titans, the domain of life, and the domain of void and light, and how all these domains have been infiltrated, manipulated, eons ago by something from the Shadowlands. Now, the book is found in Revendreth in a tower called Tower of Unseen Guests. And that term is another term used for the Dreadlords, unseen guests in the comics. Back then, we were speculating, like, okay, if this book is talking about Dreadlords, what kind of Dreadlord infiltration have we seen? How could this come about? And we know that a major key in the story of the Lich King is that the Lich King was created with like Frostmourne and the Helm of Domination, but they've changed that story a little bit. They've changed the origin of it. Once upon a time was just the Dreadlords that showed up to kill Jaden, and they were like, hey, look at the cool things that we found. Wouldn't it be nice if you made a Lich King out of this? But now we know that it was actually the jailer who extracted those designs out of the rune carver. So that means that there has to be a connection between the jailer and Kill Jaden, which would be the Dreadlords, if they truly come from the Shadowlands. Then in Revendreth, well, the sire of Revendreth is the Nefrius. The Nefrius is currently locked away in a blade called Remornia. Wouldn't it be great if the Dreadlords truly make a return and they're like,
That's the new one.
Locked away the Nefrius, but he's kind of my daddy and I kind of want him back, so I'm just going to take this sword and bring him back at some point. Definitely in the cards. And then if you look at what the Dreadlords have done over time and how these domains could have been infiltrated, in Battle for Azeroth, which I find a really cool idea, we dealt with the sword Zalatov. And Zalatov turned out to be this entity that brought us to the old god Nazaf or whatnot. But her origin has always been a little bit in the shadows. Wouldn't it be cool if Zalatov was once upon a time sent over from the Shadowlands into the domain of the Void? The Void, they see like 1,000 different truths. They were like, you don't seem to be our ally. We're just going to put you in a sword now as punishment. And then we set Zalatov free, meaning that she too has a connection to the Shadowlands. In the domain of chaos with the Dreadlords, well, we've seen Dreadlords like Mal'Ganis. Might recall Mal'Ganis hunting Arthas to follow him to the cold lands of Northrend. In Wrath of the Lich King, we saw Mal'Ganis like, ha 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 ha, you will never defeat the Lich King without my forces, which we did. But wouldn't it be cool to see Mal'Ganis now make a return? I was like, I told you wouldn't be able to defeat the Lich King. Ha 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 ha. Get it? I was talking about the jailer all along. Get it? So all in all, I was just really excited to see that there's these connections made to the story told in the past, eons of manipulation that they're now potentially bringing into the storyline. But the whole Dreadlord return, there's also Lofrexion. During Legion, there was all of a sudden light-infused Dreadlord that showed up in the Paladin Order Hall. And everybody was like, oh, cool, a Dreadlord can be infused with the light. What's happening here? Dreadlords come from the Shadowlands, and they've also infiltrated Domain of Light. That will mean that Lofrexion is like this double agent waiting to activate. So, by Lofrexion, you also have the Army of the Light and Trellian and all that storyline that could come back into it. So many exciting things, many little threads they could pull to bring it all together with the Dreadlords. And that's Corvia.
What about Jaina? Is she a Dreadlord?
No, Jaina is a Dreadlord in Heroes of the Storm. However, what is a really cool thing, and we're gonna watch the cinematic in just a moment. But spoiler alert: the jailer has the capability of making something look absolutely normal while they're not normal underneath. And we've gone into the Tower of Torghast to save a Bane, to save a Thrall, to save a Jaina, and they look absolutely normal. But what's hidden underneath? Sleeper agents, perhaps? I doubt it, but it could be a cool twist to see like a Death Knight Jaina and a Death Knight Thrall and a Death Knight Bane. That would make me so happy.
I'd love to have you write like one expansion just to see what happens. It'd be mighty interesting. Okay, Korthia sounds cool. I had no idea about like it being the City of Secrets and having so much history of Shadowlands housed there. So that's going to be definitely quite interesting to see. Which
I mean, I think we're all going to be happy with like a new zone added to the Maw, because the Maw is in general is just not that interesting. So it's going to be cool to see that.
How dare you? Don't you love auto running everywhere? There's so many rocks.
It's
that
like
you can
Argus
see.
or the Broken Shore. It's so not interesting. It's like, oh, cool, I got to save 20 souls this week. Click, click, click. Oh, I'm having so much fun. Click. It's like, oh, it needs such more work.
True. Yeah. Yes, a lot, and it looks like it will be getting a lot of work though. Since we connected it, there's a new raid coming out. Of course, and that is also previewed on your page. Thank you. That is also previewed on your page that you synced up with Wowhead to do. Another 10-man raid, Sanctum of Domination, where there's definitely a couple notable things, at least to us lore plebs, and just player plebs as far as it goes. Things like they're changing, as you mentioned earlier, Torghast deaths because the Terragru is being taken on and will presumably be defeated. The Eye of the Jailer that constantly pressures us to get out of the Maw also going away because that's one of the bosses in there. All culminating into finally facing off against Sylvanas Windrunner at the end of it all in what they quoted was the most epic encounter that we've ever seen. So, notably, though, we will not be fighting the Jailer here. Wouldn't be surprised if maybe there's some kind of mythic mechanic to like her, some Jailer influence. He shows up for a second, buffs her. Who knows how it's going to go? Can go 100 ways. Curious to hear what you think. But this raid has a lot of lore implications on not only our direct interaction with Shadowlands, the Maw, Torghast, etc., but also we found out from an interview with Bellular, things like Ner'zhul, Garrosh, puppets and hatreds of the Jailer as well.
Yeah. Well, when it comes to this raid, again, it's interesting that we're dealing with this so quickly. But as you said, most likely we won't have the Jailer as the boss. That will then be the end boss at the end of the road. But then again, maybe they're just not mentioning his name because they want to keep it a secret. I would doubt that we're going to face the Jailer right now. They have given us a couple of names. I just going to bring up my list so that I don't forget anything. Like you mentioned, the Terragru, for anybody that's been playing a game in the Tower of Torghast, if you get X amount of deaths, the Terragru shows up and just unceremonially kicks you out of the tower. You're going to go back in with your raid team and you're going to get some vengeance. There is the Eye of the Jailer, which is a boss. And the Eye of the Jailer is a storyline that goes back to Legion. Was told to us and way back in time. So the story behind the Eye of the Jailer is that once upon a time we had Keeper Odin. Keeper Odin is not a nice guy. He is very much based upon the god, and Odin wanted to have the most worthy souls of the Vrykul go up to his halls of valor where they would become Valajar, except he didn't know how to ferry those souls. Interesting. The afterlife was not exactly Odin's cup of tea, but he did like this ritual where he called upon whatever spirit and he wanted to gaze into the Shadowlands. And back then we had no idea what he spoke with. Now we know that he spoke with the Loa Muzala. And Muzala was like, "Oh, well, Odin, I can let you look into the Shadowlands, but what are you gonna sacrifice to make it so?" So great Odin, he fought for a moment. And then he had a brilliant idea. Oh, I got 2 eyes. I want to look into the Shadowlands. Have one of my eyes. So they took one of his eyes. He looked into the Shadowlands. And he learned how to make the very first of the Azeroth Valkyr. Based upon information that he learned from Bastion. He was like, oh, cool. You got like Kyrians and they fly and they can ferry these souls. I will make my Valkyr. That is the eye that became the eye of the jailer. So the thing that's been looking at us and like this force and what we're going to cleanse ourselves as, that is Odin's eye.
That is so badass.
And that's what we're going to be dealing with.
I didn't know that.
Right?
That's super badass.
Yeah.
Damn. All right.
So Odin, in his old wisdom, he was like, well, cool, I can make Valkyr now. But the job of Valkyr is not exactly nice to have. You have to be like between the living world and the afterlife. It's not exactly a job that people will line up to get, not in that generation anyways. And Keeper of Helya, Titan Sorceress Helya, she found out that Odin was going to impose this job on somebody. And she was like, Odin, you naughty, naughty, naughty Odin, we're not going to do this. You cannot enslave someone like that. What are you talking about? And because she spoke out against him, even though she helped him with his Halls of Valor, even though she helped him with this ritual, Odin had found his very first volunteer, also known as victim, and he forced the job of becoming a Valkyr on Helya. She was the very first. She was then controlled by Odin, and control is a theme that you will see in the Shadowlands story as well. But eventually she broke free. She went down and she made her Helheim, and now she too is an ally to the jailer. She's not been mentioned as a boss in this raid quite yet. Might still show up because she is in the Maw. She is behind the whole Maw Sworn thing, but she hasn't been mentioned as a boss. She is a storyline waiting to be told. Then the Fate of the Damned, as you briefly touched upon, the Fate of the Damned is another encounter, and in the presentation they already mentioned like these are the vilest souls that make their way into the Shadowlands, and these are the jailer's personal favorite things to torture. That already got your cogwheels going, and now we got it confirmed that there will be a Ner'zhul-esque storyline. Ner'zhul was the spirit of an orc, that which Kil'jaeden used to create the Lich King. And Ner'zhul kind of failed the jailer. Like the whole, you've been slain, and the whole Arthas showing up. Ner'zhul was not exactly what they were hoping him to be. And the same goes for Arthas. So I wouldn't pause them to actually put Arthas in this encounter as well, which I would find pretty badass. Garrosh, I believe, has been mentioned in an interview as well. Not exactly completely aware on the details on Garrosh going to show up, but that might be a thing. And I want you to think, like, what would be the vilest souls that we have ever encountered? What would the jailer enjoy torturing? That would be part of Fate of the Damned. After Fate of the Damned, they've also mentioned none other than Kel'Thuzad. People that played Warcraft 3 before, you know who Kel'Thuzad is. Kel'Thuzad brought the plague, allied to the jailer, became a lich. And we fought him in Classic. We fought him in Wrath of the Lich King. He was behind Meldraxxus going on the attack. Now we will once again fight him, Kel'Thuzad. Will he finally stay dead? Maybe. I mean, we are going to kill him in the Shadowlands, so maybe finally this time he's going to stay down. And then the last name that they mentioned, that would be Sylvanas Windrunner, that epic confrontation. And they are hyping up that confrontation pretty hardcore. Like they have mentions like, yeah, we fought a lot about what we wanted to do with Sylvanas, and we fought a lot about this final confrontation. Will we actually end her? I don't know. I've heard people say like Sylvanas is too much of a cash cow to let go as a character. Me personally, considering how they're like building up and putting trust in people, like, yeah, we fought about how we want to do this, I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure if she's gonna keep on going.
Let's talk about. She's certainly on the pedestal of discussion and has been for a while right now. Let's put any. Well, I mean, facts will back up your thoughts, but I want to know what you want to happen to Sylvanas, because personally, I'd be super mad and pissed if she got some like heroic redemption arc, or she martyred herself and helped us defeat the anything like that. Like, for me, she's got to go, man. That's it. Like, at this point, she's just evil and needs to die.
Like there's a difference between what I think is gonna happen, and there's a difference between what I want to happen.
Okay.
In the case of Sylvanas Windrunner, I've heard a lot of people say like, I'm just done with the whole Sylvanas thing. You know, the things that she's done, there's no coming back. I just want her to die. Which I can understand, except I think a character like Sylvanas deserves to be better than a Gul'dan, for example. Like, just used to be brought into the next expansion, to done and unceremoniously just die in the raid, and be like, yeah, okay, she's dead now, cool. All these things that she's done, she's like dead now. What does that matter? my take on it, and people have asked me during my streams as well, like, what would you do with Sylvanas as a character? It's the idea, the speculation that now we're dealing with the Shadowlands, we're dealing with the afterlife. At some point, we might actually deal with the domain of life as well, like where life comes from. Wouldn't it be interesting if instead of just killing off Sylvanas and be done with it, we actually restore her to life? Therefore, she truly feels all the horrific things that she has done. You can already see a little bit of the cracking coming right now, like, oh no, this is going way too far. And that she truly has to agonizingly feel all the horrible things that she's done. Put her on ice somewhere, put her out of the storyline, but not entirely kill off. I think for me, would be a middle road. But at the end of the day, they should have never made Sylvanas Windrunner the war chief. They should have never put her on this storytelling. They should have never put her in the front line, because she works way better as a character from the shadows doing her own thing than being a main thing. And they've written themselves in a corner. They really have. There is going to be a point where we find out what's going to happen with Sylvanas, and there's going to be a group of people that's going to be happy, and a whole bunch of people that are not going to be happy.
Yeah, I don't know. I think, I mean, there's already been hints that she turns on the jailer in some way, right? Or helps us fight him or defeat him or something. At least I've seen a lot of broken telephone about it. Could just be fandom speculation, but...
I mean, it's an option, but why turn now, I wonder? Yeah, I mean, there are some things to be said about it.
Because Anduin kind of like got in her head a lot of the time in some of the pre-9.1 cinematics we saw. You know, making her doubt herself, but like from a direction of really just questioning her, not her morality even, but like her pride, right? Like it seemed to really hurt her when he just called her out while she was telling him to, you know, work with them or else kind of thing.
Well, it's interesting. Like, I'm actually working on a video right now where I take a look at, okay, what exactly changed for Sylvanas between burn them all, it doesn't matter, mind controlling Derek Proudmoore, to what we're seeing right now. And I think it's a combination of Anduin telling her, like, look around you, see what you signed up with, and the jailer not holding up his end of the bargain, whatever that bargain might have been. I think events like Nephanos not showing up at her side, the Nephrius being left to his fate, Anduin being forced to serve. I think all of these things go against what the jailer has told her, which made her ally with him to begin with. But that is purely a speculative idea, because we have no idea what the jailer told her in order to make her an ally to him. It's really hard to say, like, yeah, this is the reason why she's swapping over now.
Very true. So that leads us into, as you hinted earlier, let's talk about the jailer and Sylvanas and Anduin. But to do that, I think we can paint the picture better by watching the cinematic that was previewed at BlizzCon. So let me dunk that, and then let's digest it bit by bit, because I know you're excited about it. And then we'll have a good old chat about it. Let me get back up to your video area. There we go. Okay. Chat, be quiet. I never chill. Oh, is this all of them together? The one that they linked on your page?
No, it starts off with a little introduction as well, I think.
Did it? Okay, nonetheless. I will play this, and we are good. Just make sure it's not 360p.
This is the wild thing. Yeah.
Nah, there we go.
Look around you!
What makes you believe you're not just a weapon to achieve his ends?
Enough!
Join our cause, or be made to serve.
Right now, you hold all the power. Make your choice, Sylvanas Windrunner.
Despite all our efforts, the Maw continues to grow. What if Denathrius' treachery is irreparable? The Primus is lost, and Bastion cannot save the Shadowlands alone.
None of this should have happened.
Perhaps the Winter Queen could...
My Archon, a living soul, seeks an audience.
A mortal?
A king. By all our measures, One who has spent his life striving for justice. One who would give anything to serve his people. One whose heart is true.
Very well. He may approach. Step forward. My Ascended have spoken of you. The king, held captive in the mall.
That prison could not hold me forever.
Why have you come to Bastion?
You have a key that I need.
You will release this soul from your grasp.
No. He is bound to me.
Just as you once sought to bind your own brother. The vessel performed its part flawlessly. 3 keys remain. Then they will see. Death was never meant to be chained.
Ooh, goosebumps.
I just love Chet's reaction when watching these cutscenes. Oh, so good.
Okay, so a lot happened here, and probably a lot more that your trained lore eye has picked up on, rather than mine. So, top to bottom, let's scrub it together. Everything that happened here, Uther's interaction, grabbing his scar, seeing Anduin, knowing the forces that are within him, and the origins of the blade, and that he was affected by it too. Finding out that the Archon actually still alive, she doesn't die. The jailer's her brother. 3 more keys remain. I don't even know where to start. So go ahead. I know you're foaming at the mouth for it.
Let's start at the beginning. In case you missed out, like the start, like I mentioned earlier in the stream, Anduin was left behind in the Tower of Torghast, and he's had quite a few chats with Sylvanas. Anduin drew the attention of the jailer right at the start as we entered the maw. We found this relic of the first ones that was a way out of there. We tried to hold the line against the jailer's forces, and the jailer just showed up, and he was like, "Okay, bondage time." Everybody chained to the ground. But Anduin was like, no. Even down here, the light is with me. So he called upon the light, and the light responded, and that bought us the time we needed in order to start our adventures into the Shadowlands. So Anduin told the jailer, like, nah, you lost. And the jailer was like, no, I found exactly what I need. So Anduin drew his interest. Why? As we now found out, he was looking for somebody to enter Bastion for him, which is kind of cool. So Anduin is taken into the tower, where he has a whole bunch of conversations with Sylvanas, where she is trying to make him see reason in her mind. She is trying to convince him to join their side because she doesn't want to force the job upon him. And she actually tells the jailer, like, you've seen his power when he believes in the cause. Give me some time with him. I can make him see that it is better to join with us. So they have chats, and Anduin is like, are you kidding me? Do you really think you're the good guy? And Sylvanas is like, how can I convince you? And then scenes happen that we're not allowed to talk about here. But at the end of the day, Anduin refuses to sign up with Sylvanas. So she is left 2 choices. Either she can force the job upon him, or she can set him free. That weapon that you see, that blue one, that is apparently called Kingsmorn, as in that is the title that they use in the cutscene. I personally find Shalamorn to be a way cooler name. It's a Morn blade. And the little gem that they infuse into the weapon, it was my assumption that that was like a gem which allowed them to lock away souls, similar to how a Frostmourne could steal your soul as well. But then in an interview with the Lost Codex, which I just checked out, they did say that the jailer would think about what he would drop into the weapon. He wouldn't just pick anything, and we'll find out more about what kind of power or what the gem was that he put in there. Sylvanas was also confused about the gem. Some are wondering, like, is that the spirit of Arthas that he put in there? What exactly is happening with the weapon? We're gonna find out. Either way, soap opera moment. Your move, Windrunner. Do you become the very thing that you fought against, or do you let me go? And next thing we know, we get this cutscene. Now, sadly for the Blizzard developers and the ones that made this cutscene, somebody over at Blizzard dropped the ball and they released the press kit one day early before BlizzCon. Everybody already knew that Anduin was gonna look the way that it looks in the cutscene. But imagine for a moment that you didn't. So you see like pure holy Anduin show up and he walks in and you're like, oh, cool. So Sylvanas just let Anduin go. Oh, that's a really cool, interesting storytelling. Oh, wait, no, he's still transforming. What? She went through with it. The mind-blowing would have been amazing. And sadly, that was robbed of them. But yeah, Sylvanas went through with it. They dominated Anduin, turned him into their puppets, their servants, complete mind control. And I've heard some people argue like, oh, so she is now realizing that Arthas was also a mind control puppet. That has never been the case. Arthas had choices in life. Arthas had choices as a Death Knight. You might argue the moment that he put on the helmet that he was controlled, but even then, there's still a little bit of him in there. This is full-blown mind control. Like, I don't think anyone will ever blame Anduin for stabbing the Archon. As you can see, no vision, nobody's home, there's only Jailer in there, except for the small moments in which Anduin regains control and he's like, oh, what am I doing? What have I done? It goes so against his character. He's like, oh no, what's happening right now? Some suggested the idea that this is actually the Jailer tormenting Anduin, and I find that way cooler, to be honest. That the Jailer just lets go of his grip to just show Anduin what he's done, and then he's like, yoink, you're mine again. It's not the case. It's actually Anduin's personality bursting through the Jailer's control and realizing before the Jailer tightens it again and makes him do whatever he wants him to do. As he walks by Uther, Uther like goes to his wounds. Uther's spirit has been wounded by Frostmourne, I should say. So he is very familiar with the powers of the Maw. And the one that wounded it was Arthas. And Arthas has a lot of similarities to Anduin. They both have blonde hair. They're both light wielders. Anduin is not officially yet a paladin. But I believe if you're in the Maw and you're walking around with Anduin and somebody of the opposite faction looks at you, they have like a Stormwind Paladin running next to them. I think they're pushing towards Anduin becoming a Paladin. Either way, there are a lot of similarities between Arthas and Anduin. So Uther not only recognizes the power of the Maw that radiates from Anduin, even though apparently none of the other Kyrian picks it up, but whatever. And he recognizes the image of like, oh yeah, Arthas, I remember, he was the one who stabbed my soul. And then the Kyrians are like, keep moving, prisoner. It's like, okay, cool. So yeah, Anduin, our boy king, doesn't have to go through trials, doesn't have to go through the aspirant rule. Nope. In his case, because he's a king, apparently that makes a difference. They just allow him an audience with the Archon. I don't know about all of you, but when I was watching this cutscene, I was like, that's some bullshit. I went through a whole starting experience in order to earn my right for an Archon audience. And Anduin just walks in like, la-di-da, I'm a king, la-di-da.
Maybe they're just saying it's account wide now, not the Maw intro experience is going to be gone in 9.1. One can hope.
So he walks in and he uses Shalamorn in order to stab the Archon, and he sucks out a little symbol of the Kyrian. The collector's edition also had 4 of these symbols as pendants, and the Archon is not dead. In the cutscene, you see her hand twitch a little bit, which was supposed to be a suggestive hint, like she's not entirely gone. There's also been this bug in the game where somebody actually manages to kill the Archon, and she has like this voice file of, the Archon is dead and all of Bastion will follow, or something in that direction. So yeah, she's not dead. She's still there. maybe depowered, maybe whatnot. And our controlled Anduin brings that icon with his sword to the jailer. And the jailer goes like, okay, 1 key collected, 3 more to go. Then, of course, the question, what happens next? In the interview, they dropped that Anduin's attack is going to be followed by Ardenweald. So it definitely seems to suggest the idea that the keys are connected to our covenants. So there's 1 in Bastion, 1 in Ardenweald, 1 in Revendreth, and 1 in Maldraxxus. However, the Winter Queen is in Ardenweald. Okay, so there's going to be an attack there. We would expect that Sire Denethrius would be the one that has the key of Revendreth. Maybe he just didn't pass it on quite yet. Or maybe, I don't know. And then the key of Maldraxxus would be in the possession of the Primus. Now, we're all kind of expecting, and I think they even confirmed in an interview that the Runecarver is indeed the Primus. Huge shock and surprise to everybody, I'm sure. But you would imagine that the Primus also has one of these keys, but he's been a prisoner of the jailer for a very long time now. Now, at the same time, the Primus is also this master strategist. So he maybe been able to predict, like, oh yeah, my key, maybe I should hide this. Regardless, where those keys are going to come from, that's something that we're going to find in 9.1. He still needs 3 keys, and he needs these keys supposedly to break out of the maw, I imagine. If this pantheon of death, so the rulers of these domains, are the ones that lock the jailer into the maw, then I imagine that whoever locks him away holds the keys to break him out of there. So I imagine that is why they're going after these keys. Chad is also mentioning Draka has been mentioned as a key. Fair. But then I would have to wonder, like, did the Primus hide his key inside of Draka? Maybe. Then the Arbiter, because the Primus... I should explain a bit more about the Primus. The Primus is the ruler of Maldraxxus. The Primus has had these all-time friends that allowed him to manipulate time. And by manipulating time, he was able to play out like a bazillion different battle scenarios. He pretty much became clairvoyant and was able to predict things in the future. And he expected that after they imprisoned their brother Zoval, after the betrayal that led to them locking Zoval within the maw, he expected that Zoval was not working alone, that he had so-called ancient allies, and that he had turned his chains into a weapon, that he was working towards breaking free. And if we would ever reach the seat of the Primus, as we did in-game, then his suspicions would be true. Zoval is trying to break out, and the only way that we could stop him would be for the Eternal Ones to stand together once more. Do not let Zoval reach the Sepulchre. Maybe that's the location where he hid his key. And then the Arbiter is the final key. So does the jailer need like these 4 Covenant icons to then make his way to the Arbiter, to then fuse together with the Arbiter to become one single being again, and then he can go out of the Shadowlands? Maybe. That's something we're going to find out.
What do you... because we throw a bit of speculation here and there, and it seems like a fitting time in terms of, we'll talk more about, where do we go after 9.1? But one of the things that was mentioned that I found interesting is, what do you think the chances that our encounter with the jailer finally, where we fight him and potentially defeat him, etc., is back in Azeroth?
Could be a thing. I imagine what they're building up right now with all the predictions and build up or whatnot, they are aiming towards, you got like World of Warcraft, which has always been Alliance versus Horde, like little Warcrafts, and then you got bigger Warcrafts with like the Old Gods and the Titans. Now they're diving into the cosmic chart of Warcraft, which is all these cosmic forces. I think it would be pretty cool if at the end of the day, all these cosmic forces just end up in this massive war trying to bring back the tide of death of the jailer breaking out of the Shadowlands. And like, no, and we're all just with like Naru and Azeroth waking up with her little blade, and then Illidan and the Pantheon show up again. Like, that would be an epic finale, but maybe it's too much to hope for, right? Like, I don't want to build it too much.
So you want the Avengers Endgame in World of Warcraft?
What, is this not enough? It's like everything we have, man. We're just throwing it at the jailer right now.
I mean, bear with me here, because obviously not as knowledgeable as you are with this. How, like, I don't I haven't really fully encapsulated or just like internalized how big of a deal in terms of cosmology power is the jailer. Like, is he like a really big boy here, or is he kind of like a middle guy?
I believe that they've described, and power levels in Warcraft are kind of bullshit, but there's a difference between a random ass Murloc and a Titan, right? That's pretty
Right,
easy to
right.
see. I believe that the Eternal ones have been described as like Titan plus in that regard. So what is it a big deal? Yeah, it's a force that could squat us like a little bug, pretty much. But then again, that's nothing new that we've ever faced before, which is also a different subject to discuss on another day with like power levels growing and whatnot. But because we faced something like an Argus before, sure enough, we had a Pantheon backing us up, but we faced it. So now that you got like a Titan Plus, what else is going to back us up against the domain of death? Well, there is, again, that plane of life with maybe an Elune or an Aeonar or, these cosmic forces that could back us up and empower us. I don't know if you've seen Tyrande go haymaker on the forces in the Maw and Torghast. Like, Tyrande's pretty powerful. Imagine an army full of Tyrandes. Be kind of cool.
I wanted to poke about, and chat, just if you're joining us, we'll do Q&A stuff at the end. So if you have any questions or notes about stuff that we talk about, we'll pick it all up at the end. So don't worry, just keep it in mind. I did want to ask about, I know we didn't talk about it in the pre-show too much, but what's up with Tyrande? I mean, she obviously is now tying into Torghast and the Maw and everything, and she's on her, revenge scheme and must kill Sylvanas. Yeah. Do you think she's going to be present in the new raid? Is she going to be part of the Sylvanas fight in some way?
I kind of want her. I kind of want her to miss out on raid time and just be lost in the Tower of Torghast endless halls like I have been to get to layer 8 in order to get like a mount. I just want her to be inside of there, and then when it's raid time, she's not there, so she shows up once Sylvanas has been defeated already, and then she's like, well, now what do I do with all this rage inside of me? I can't even kill the Banshee Queen anymore. She's like, this is the whole purpose, my whole reason, and then she just explodes, and then Malfurion shows up, and he's like, Tyrande, my love, where are you? And then he tastes like the air with like little Tyrande dust, and he's like, yeah, what is this? But that's just hope. I don't think that's gonna happen. So what's happening with Tyrande for those who are out of the loop? Tyrande is the leader of the Night Elves, and the Night Elves didn't have it easy in battle for Azeroth, right? Sylvanas, she decided to invade Darkshore. She decided to attack the elves, and eventually she burned down Teldrassil. Now, that's a pretty big deal. It's called the Genocide of the Night Elves. Like, it's the plan was to make Garrosh look like an amateur, and they succeeded. So Tyrande was like, what the heck are you doing? That's not very nice. So she invoked this ancient, powerful ritual of the Night Warrior. Their goddess Elune, portrayed by the moon, but who knows what Elune actually is. She threw like this decapitated orc head in a moon well, and she was like, Elune, I want it. And Elune was like, all right, I'll make you Super Saiyan. That's cool. She basked Tyrande in the powers of the Night Warrior, and that power allowed them to kick the Horde out of Darkshore, to eventually confront and slay Nathanos, to go after the Banshee Queen into the Maw, and Tyrande has just been kicking ass and taking names. She is a near unstoppable force, even when her adopted daughter Chandris is like, Mom, you're killing yourself, come home. And she's like, no, not before I kill Sylvanas Windrunner. You go along now and you go do your thing. I'm going to kill Sylvanas. And that's the last that we saw of Tyrande. In the meantime, if you've done the Night Fae campaign, you've learned that there have been more Night Warriors in the past. And those Night Warriors die. Like, that empowerment by Elune, it burns them up. They cannot sustain themselves. So we're working on a way of trying to save Tyrande. I'm imagining, like, in the Guardians of the Galaxies, where they, like, hold hands to share the power. I imagine that's what's going to happen to Tyrande. There's, like, going to be a whole bunch of dead former Night Warriors, and they're going to go, like, Kumbaya, my lord, please calm down. And then the powers can leave it again. But then there's also the Elune storyline, which is really cool. There's the potential that Elune is connected to this pantheon of death with like the Winter Queen and whatnot. And I'm really hoping that once we go into the domain of life, that we learn more about what is Elune, what is this Night Warrior ritual, what's going on here. So it's a story waiting to be told. But to bring it all back to like, will she be there for the Sylvanas kill? I would piss my pants if she actually misses on the kill. If we kill Sylvanas and Tyrande's not there, I'm gonna laugh my ass off. But otherwise, she might be like a great moment to show up and be like, champions, I know that Windrunner has nearly defeated you, but don't worry, I'm here. And then she goes like, yoink, and we win.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, there's from, my brain works from like a systematic raid strategy perspective, and it seems very likely and very easily done that Sylvanas will be the kind of fight where there's like, a jailer phase somehow, jailer infused phase, and like Tyranda's your Prince Renethal / like Jaina from Ashara encounter that's trying to like help you, and there's a Tyranda mechanic, and on Mythic she's like not there or something, or in prison and whatever it may be. But like I'd be very surprised if both of those somehow aren't involved in that fight. And I mean, like you said, Blizzard's building up a pretty big mountain for this fight as the most epic thing we've ever seen, which is it's a pretty big claim, considering some of the fights we've had.
I know, right? I heard them in the interviews, and I was like, ooh, that's bold to say when you don't even have the raid inside the show during BlizzCon. And this is going to be like the most epic moment ever. It's like, ooh, you must have had some good story on the table. Damn.
Yeah. What do you think is going to happen?
With Sylvanas?
No, I mean, you talked about Sylvanas, but like that fight. Well, I guess, yeah, with Sylvanas, but like that fight specifically. What do you think is going to make it so epic?
Were they specifically talking about mechanics, though? Or were they talking about the storyline?
I hope not mechanics, because that means bugs. And that's not very epic.
Just no mechanics, just target dummy. Nothing can go wrong if it's a target dummy. Beautiful. What would go down in a Sylvanas fight? Well, she will use her purple death of insta-kill, used against Sourfang. She will have the nimble ranger skills that she uses. She is a hero in Heroes of the Storm, where she is able to control enemies with mind control, if I recall right. So she'll probably mind control the raid as well. Nophanos will be an ability. It's called Simping from a Banshee Queen, where he literally just throws himself in front of your attacks and she's immune for a little bit until you've gotten rid of the Nophanos shields. Plague will be part of the competition. There will be a goblin in the corner going, gas mask, get your gas masks here. So you got to quickly run through your gas mask before you die. Yeah, Tyrande will help you empower it. Yeah.
And the jailer will help play defense. They'll run a 4-4-2 formation, I'm sure, at some point.
I don't know if the jailer will be part of the fight. I think the jailer is going to be off as doing his own thing.
But like for me, lore implications, if the jailer is not there, like if Sylvanas is failing, right, and like dying and losing, and the jailer does not come to help her or like empower her in some way, that to me would imply that the jailer has forsaken her and has been like, oh, she's disappointing like Ner'zhul, I'm leaving her, whatever. Like, you didn't perform up to snuff, see ya. You're not strong enough to stick around.
Yeah. He's like that elitist mythic raider that's like, you didn't put out the numbers, you're going to be benched. But look at what he did with the Nefrius. The Nefrius is imprisoned in a sword right now, and Sylvanas is like, what are we going to do about that? And the jailer's like, oh, every soul has his place. I guess his was inside of a sword,
Yeah, I don't think he gives a shit. I think he's just got, if she loses, she loses. Like, that's it. And maybe I
think he has his own plans.
Maybe that's what precipitates Sylvanas to then want to martyr herself or help us, because she'll be like, I can't believe Daddy didn't come for me. Screw him.
Ew, I hate that.
I hate it too. I hate it too, but I'm worried that it's a very realistic possibility.
My real quick take on it, because again, I'm still working out the details. I think the idea behind Sylvanas allying with the jailer has to do with the jailer showing her that there is no free will in the afterlife, and free will has always been a big thing for Sylvanas. So I think she ended up with the jailer, and he told her like, the mod, it's a pretty rough deal, right? You got sorted by the arbiter and stuff. Imagine if that wasn't there. Imagine if you could actually spend your afterlife with all your loved ones and you didn't have to be put to work forever. We could make that so. And then she allied with the jailer, thinking that he was gonna, bring freedom to the universe and go against the cosmic designs of the first ones. But along the way, she's like, well, in order to make this happen, we do take a lot of freedom away. And I don't see a Nophanos here. He's my loved one. And the Nefrius is gone. I don't know about this guy. So I think what started out as, what does it matter what you do in life if the afterlife is this way, is gonna turn into this is what he told me. I thought I was doing the right thing, but maybe I was wrong.
Possibly.
Think.
However it goes, I don't unfortunately think it'll be a clean kill and like, well, that's Sylvanas, all right, let's move on. There will be lingering Gul'dan style effects for a while at least. Anything else you want to mention about part of this kind of triangle here, especially that, you know, we're seeing on screen as well? Anduin. Anything you want to talk about Anduin? What happens to Anduin after this? What do you think happens? Is Anduin donezo? Does he break free? Is he gonna die? Are we gonna have to face him as a boss encounter where we help free him? Like, what's going on?
Oh, I would love to face Anduin on the battleground as like a mind-controlled jailer muppet. Oh, that would be so good. And then occasionally you just knock him on his ass and he's like, champion, what am I doing? Or like, I'm sorry, Anduin, I love you, but you're mind-controlled. And he's like, that's okay. That's okay. I forgive you all. Just kill me. And then you have to fight him again. Oh, that would be great. But what is going to happen with Anduin? No idea. Is this his permanent fate? No idea. People have been suggesting and speculating, wondering, like, we've never really cured undeath before. Like, what can we do with an Anduin? Is he truly undead now? Is he a Death Knight? Is it purely the armor? Is it cosmetic? What's happening? But I will say this, it's a fantasy story, and if we are indeed dealing with the domain of life, I mean, if anything can reverse undeath, it would be life, right? Then when it comes to interesting characters that they can bring into Anduin's storyline, we have an Uther the Lightbringer, who once upon a time dealt with Arthas, he was my student. And Arthas went down a dark path, and despite Uther trying to talk to him, trying to do his way of you know, pushing Arthas on a different path, Arthas eventually became what we know, and he burned Lordaeron to the ground, and Uther's soul got split apart, and a whole bunch of trouble. But now there's Anduin, and Anduin reminds Uther a lot of Arthas. What if he gets a second chance to get it right? Like his previous student, he dropped into the maw. What if he could get it right with an Anduin? And I think Uther would make a really interesting character. There's also the Spirit of Vol'jin. Spirit of Vol'jin in Ardenweal's storyline ends up in a pod with Rezan, the Loa of Kings essence. And we're kind of wondering, like, is going to be Vol'jin a new Loa of Kings, or what's happening with Vol'jin? I mean, Anduin is a king. He's not immortal. He's apparently a king, because that's different. I love that line so much in the cutscene. He's like, is it immortal? It's a king. It's like, oh my. So different. So Vol'jin, Loa of Kings could be a thing. Talia and Kalia. Kalia is the sister to Arthas. Talia is the daughter of Bolvar. Bolvar has taken care of Anduin since a child, so Bolvar could play a part in there. So those characters could definitely rally together and an epic patch where we try to bring Anduin back to our side. But again, I would be very surprised if Anduin just dies in this expansion. Let's be fair. I think we would all be very surprised if a mind-controlled Anduin is slain and is like, yeah, game over.
Yeah, I think it's more so the implications of what happens once he breaks out of this, right? And he's like, oh man, I did a lot of bad stuff that wasn't under my control. And then there's definitely going to be people that are like, I don't care. Some shred of him was still in there. It's his fault. And some people are like, no.
Or himself, like someone like Anduin would feel heartbroken of what he's done. Like it's had such an impact on him that he could break out of his mind control. How is his mind gonna be and his soul after they get him out of there? You might even get like a Velen, Prophet Velen might make a return. If we have like Lofrexion, a Turellian, and the Army of the Light, there might also be Velen. There's a lot of plot threads that could bring rally around Anduin. Not to mention his dad. Oh, I didn't even mention Varian. Like Varian, his daddy died on the Broken Shore in Legion, and he was blown up. And to that, people say like, "Ooh, Gul'dan has blown up his soul, so therefore, Varian can't go to the Shadowlands." But in my humble opinion, that is not written down. There is an Ashemain, which is a wild god. She was also blown up as a demon blew up. So I'm like, well, Varian could easily go to the Shadowlands. How cool would it be if you could see like Varian running around Ardenweald like a low gush kind of wolf thingy? And now he shows up to bring guidance and advice to his son. He's like, "Rar, I'm a wolf now. I heard that my son's in trouble. Rar." And then he shows up to help out. It would be fantastic.
And he's like missing a paw and a tail because they didn't find all the pieces of him and stuff. Yeah, that would make sense. Speaking of
Yes.
variant, you actually reminded me. I wanted to mention something once we started the cinematic, but then we started chatting about whatever else. Unless I'm mistaken, I could be. Anything to say about Anduin's Morn blade looking very much like Varian's war blades? Like the shape of it? Coincidence or?
Well, that's the thing. They took Anduin's weapon, Shalamain. That's the weapon that Anduin got from his father when
Right.
he died, and they just yoinked that weapon off of him,
So it is
brought it
Varian's
to
sword.
their blacksmith.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was just like completely by chance.
They just put some runes on it and a gem, unless they made like an exact copy. But why would they, right? They just hammer away a Shalamain and make it Shalamorn. And again, that gem is going to be of some interest later down the line. Arf's spirit inside of it, something of power. We're going to find out.
I don't think we see a clip of the gem in this particular video. It's like a big red ruby kind of thing. Yeah, we don't really see it.
Big blue one that he yoinks out of a portal.
Was it
I
blue
think
or
it
red?
happens after here. Blue.
Okay, well, I'll see in a second. I could have sworn
Oh no, they cut out of it. It's the previous one.
Yeah, it's the previous one. I don't have that one on hand right now. If somebody wants to link it, I'm more than happy to put it up, chat.
They socketed Anduin's weapon. It's a gem. It's 20 haste.
Also, then it's confirmed that the jailer is working with Venari. Then he gave her the Stygia. She gave him a socket, and there you go.
Easy.
Also means the
See,
jailer
it's
has
really
a long way.
suspicious that she has like this soul cage, and that she just comes up with keys into the Tower of Torghast. That doesn't make sense. It makes more sense if she's in league with the jailer.
Very true. And also, I think it'll take a bit, I thought about it during the video, I think it'll take a bit for the jailer to get all 3 keys, because he's not going to be able to just swap covenants whenever he wants and grab all the keys from around the world. So it's going to take a bit right there. Nonetheless, if you have anything else you want to mention about Anduin at all, the more so the jailer, Sylvanas, Anduin trio here, before we start to dive into what you've already mentioned a few times with the first ones.
Can swap, he just can't swap back, right? Now, they said in an interview that apparently the attack on Arnweil is going to follow quickly, and it's this attack on the Archon that's going to push all the covenants into action. Bolvar's going to lead the charge into uniting these covenants, and we're all going to go into the Maw. I think it gives strength to the idea that the bonds around the Maw are weakening, that now the covenants also dare to step into this domain. At the very start, it was like nobody escapes, even though Sylvanas went out of there and the Valkyr went out of there, and there's a whole bunch of things that already escaped them all before us. But I think story-wise, it's more of the idea like the bonds are weakening, therefore the covenants can now come with us, and that's going to change up the gameplay quite a bit. And that's all I wanted to say about that.
Oh, I got the gem clip here. Hang on. There we go.
Ooh.
Soul has its purpose. Denathrius has fulfilled his. We must forge.
There it is.
Mm-hmm.
It is indeed blue.
When people ask me, I was like, well, that's just the soul cage like Venari hooked us up with, so it will allow, a Morn blade to steal souls. But no, apparently there's more to it. It's a versatility gem.
He needs it. That's a good point. You just touched on it. What do you think about this event and everybody getting the Maw together, unifying the covenants and everybody's fighting on a unified front, not for any implications of systems, but just from a lore perspective? What do you make of this? Do you think everyone's gonna live happily ever after now, and we're good, and there's a bigger threat? Do you think there's still going to be dissension amongst some of the covenants, or no?
I mean, you mentioned let's not talk about gameplay mechanics, but I think a big reason as to why they were so eminent about keeping the covenants separate and you had to pick one is because they wanted to sell the idea that the covenants are separated, and in the next patch you're going to bring them back, you're going to unite them again. I just kind of wish that the gameplay would reflect more of that storyline, because gameplay-wise, for the past patch or for the expansion, we, the Mallwalkers, have been the glue between the covenants, and there has been no real strife. Quite the opposite. You sometimes go out for calling quests to other zones. During the covenant campaigns, you help each other out. There's no real discontent between the covenants, and I don't know why they didn't make that story at the start. It would have made a lot more sense to then sell the idea of, okay, you need to pick one covenant over the other. But now, we're going to unite the covenants and they're going to be pushed into action. I've been pondering about what that exactly means, because the covenants have not really been hanging out with each other, because those pathways that we see in Oribos right at the start, we need to make like new pathways into the domains. Again, it comes down to that anima drought. Like, they haven't been able to keep these pathways open. So all these zones have been kind of on their own, just trying to air whatever anima they can for themselves, and they've not really been dealing with other people's problems because they had so much. But we've been bringing back all that anima. We fixed that problem, so now it's time to reopen those pathways and get them all together, and party hardy. I do wonder if that's gonna have like a gameplay implication of, okay, now that we've united these covenants, we're gonna be a lot more lenient on the soul binds as well as what covenant you're part of. But we're gonna find out if that's gonna be a thing or if they're really gonna stick with it.
Lenient, or here's all covenant abilities at the same time? Extra
Right?
lenient. I don't think they'd do that, but perhaps a bit more leniency in swapping. I mean, the lore's set up for it, right? We'll see though if the system.
I mean, the lore's been set
lore.
up since the start.
Yeah.
The lore's been set up since the start, and the whole you can only be part of one covenant has purely been a gameplay thing. Like, they sell it in the storyline as in you need to focus on one covenant over the other so you can make it strong, and other mall walkers will pick other covenants and they'll make that strong. But in my humble opinion, if we're gonna be fighting against this uber evil, then we need all hands on deck, and we should just be working together. All of us. Give me all your power, all your soul binds. I don't need your transmog or your mounts. You keep that unique, but just give me all your power.
Yeah, but how many times has that been a thing historically in Warcraft where we needed to work together as Alliance and Horde, and there was always some kind of tomfoolery or somebody doesn't help the other side or whatever, because, you know, faction war and faction pride, all that always needs to be a central theme in Warcraft, not Hugcraft.
Make that a thing then. Like, you can fight each other and kick each other's heads in, but every single time they try to sell this story of, yeah, the faction pride and faction war. Meanwhile, oh, it's really, really handy if we start working together and just combine our might against these forces. Every single time. Battle for Azeroth as well. That's why it irked me so much. It's like, yeah, we just went back to the status quo, what we've always been doing. Also, at BlizzCon, they mentioned, like, thinking about like merc mode for raiding and dungeoneering. Oh, please, I would love.
Nobbel? Did I lose you? Oh, you cut out there for a sec. You're good now, though.
Oh, sorry. I said at the end I would love that so much.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people would, but they're I mean, number one pillar for them has always been Horde Alliance, right? Merch is based on Horde and Alliance. Which side are you with? Chanted BlizzCon, like, I don't think they'll ever merge the factions, but for gameplay purposes, maybe merc modes around the area would be nice.
Yeah. And that's fair.
Now, let's talk about something that I know absolutely nothing about, but I've been more increasingly curious, especially as you started talking about it. Cosmos, First Ones, and the bigger picture of everything that's happening here. I think this is something you talked about in a video as well, right? That you recently put out. Or are going to put out, but nonetheless, take us through it.
So you want to know about the Cosmos and the First Ones? Well, I'm happy to tell you that we know very, very little. What's happening, or what has happened? A while back, and we're talking about a couple of years back, they decided to come out with the Warcraft Chronicles. And the Chronicles, their intention was to bring all this lore that they have of the Warcraft universe over the years. Things have been changing, things have been doing. They wanted to update that, just give you a book like this is the story. And in it, they also talked about, as you show it on screen right now, the cosmic forces in Warcraft. This is what makes up reality. Warcraft, Cosmos, these different powers. The story goes that in the beginning, there was light and there was void. Eventually, these forces did like the whole Big Bang. And from the Big Bang, the Warcraft universe came to be. All this, what you see, is light and void crashing with each other. So you got like Titans waking up and Naru showing up at the party and demons coming out of the Twisting Nether. You got all these different forces showing up and making what it is where we play in. Then with the First Ones, they've decided, and the details are still not clear, but the First Ones have been set to have brought order to the cosmos. So that makes you wonder, because excuse me, there's a gap in front of there was light and there was void. Maybe there were like two first ones playing tennis with each other, which created the Big Bang, right? Or the Big Bang happened and the first ones were like, wow, quite a nice pad you got around here. Well, if I just move the light into the light section and Titans go into order section and you go in that section, maybe that's what the first ones did. Either way, they brought order to the cosmos at some point in time. And this is the first time in the Shadowlands that we hear about them. So they're adding to what has been told before. Next to that, it's little tidbits that we've about the first ones. Apparently, they were the ones that designed Ouroboros and more works, like that City of Secrets that they left behind that's going to be connected to the first ones. The relic in the Maw that for some reason, and that reason will also be deep dived into later on, responded to us as Azerothian heroes, whatever it is that made us so special, besides being the player and we can't die in the game. It responded to us for some reason, and that's also connected to the first ones. And considering that the Maw is the jailer's prison, there's a connection between the first ones, the Eternal Ones, the imprisonment of Zoval, all that good stuff. That's pretty much what we know about the first ones at this point in time. Now, there is going to be a book, I believe in April, which is going to be written by Sean Copeland and Steve Deniser, if I pronounce those names right. Sean Copeland is like the loreology of Warcraft, as well as the other Blizzard franchises. Like, if you think I know a lot about the Warcraft lore, Sean knows everything. Pretty much everything. He is my god. And he also did a panel on the life of Thrall at BlizzCon. Great guy. And then Steve Deniser is lead story development. And they brought their powers together and they're going to bring out this book. And this book is going to be from, if I remember right, a broker's perspective, where they too will talk about their observations on the Warcraft universe. Because they've decided that the Chronicles are written from the viewpoint, from the knowledge of the Titans and the Order, a domain of order. Now, some believe, or some say that means that the Chronicles can be thrown in the trash bin because it's all tainted and all of the lore comes from the Titan point of view. But at the same time, the lore still lines up. So even though it's the Titans that tell you that this story happened, it's still accurate information. But this broker is going to give us their take on the first ones, the cosmos, and more information as well. So yeah, I believe that's going to be for April. So we're all really looking forward to that book releasing. Is it April or July? One of the two. There's going to be a book out on it.
Yeah, I'm just looking through the notes here. I don't see the release date. It just says Grimoire of the Shadowlands.
Oh, it's Grimoire, then it's 14th of July, last I know.
Okay.
I got like a whiteboard behind my PC. One says 14th of April we'll get a book. I imagine that's going to be Exploring Azeroth then. And then the 14th of July we'll get Grimoire.
Okay. Okay, so there's not that much to know about it so far. Nope. So from Bellular's video, he uncovered a bit more of this Cosmos lore, just a bit, from his interview earlier. And one of the quotes here for cosmology and morality from Denuser said, "The thing to keep in mind is that these forces, whether it be light or order from the Titans or shadow, characters in our world tend to ascribe good and evil motivations to these things. But really, those powers don't care about morality. They are driven to do what their nature is. And so, the nature of the Titans is to impose order on things. If you're on that program helping them accomplish that goal, then they will be benevolent towards you, and they will help and guide you. Perhaps we'll learn what will happen if you aren't someone who agrees with their agendas. The same could be said of the light. What happens when Illidan didn't go along with Zera's plan? Well, sparkles rain down from the sky. Even, for example, in Visions of N'Zoth, when you think about the things N'Zoth was saying, he wasn't like, serve my evil will. He was like, I can make you stronger. I can help you. There's a bunch of bad stuff out there. You should be joining me and letting me help you do these things. You could say, was he lying to me? Well, part of it probably was, but there's truth to it too. These things exist beyond the morality as we mortals think of. As the more cosmic storylines unfold, these moral questions and moral points of view versus these cosmic ancient powers will be something to explore."
What did they say about N'Zoth? That he wasn't that much of a bad guy? Oh, no, they're talking about morality, that it's more like a mortal point of view. Yeah, at the end of the day, if you just want to live your life on Azeroth, then the Titans are definitely preferable over something like the Void Lords or the Old Gods. But yeah, morality, right or wrong, it's all a matter of point of view, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's what he's saying, is that there is ultimately not really good and evil, but everything in your perspective can be good or bad depending on which side you're on. But we, being on the side of the light, see things like N'Zoth is evil, but he's just trying to, get his kids through college and stuff like that.
He just wants to corrupt Azeroth and consume the entire universe. Does that make them a bad guy?
Seems like a nice guy.
Depends on your point of view, I suppose. What?
Anything else you want to throw in for first one's cosmology related, chat? Chat is in like discussion, not chat.
Oh, right.
Twitch
I was
chat.
like watching chat. I'm like, oh, you're going to bring some input now. No, like I said, it's going to be very excited to get that new information in our hands.
Okay. Then that leads us to a couple of things we've talked about already, but where do we go from here? What happens after 9.1? The jailer more than likely survives. Sylvanas is dealt with one way or another. Our expectations that, the domain of the jailer being the Maw and Torghast land is something we're infiltrating way earlier than we thought in this expansion. Where do we go? What happens? Ardenweald is certainly going to be attacked at some point. Could that be raid-oriented material? Does the jailer break out of the Shadowlands? Where do you think we go after 9.1?
Okay. So ever since the beta times, we've been wondering, like, okay, we're gonna deal with Castle Nafria, which is Revendreth Fenrir Covenant. Does that mean that each and every covenant is gonna get their own storyline? The one with the covenants uniting seems to originate from Bastion with the Archon and whatnot, and they've also said we're gonna be dealing with Uther and the Mawsworn. So maybe this is the Bastion-esque with right now. That would leave Ardenweald. Ardenweald has a plot going on about the Winter Queen's sister, which is connected to Ysera, the Green Dragon aspect. It's connected to the Emerald Dream, the Emerald Nightmare, Cycle of Rebirth. They're the domain of life that I talked about a couple of times now. So that is definitely a story plot that we could dive into further. Who exactly is the Winter Queen's sister? I'm personally putting my money on Elune. I know that there are people out there that are putting their money on Aeonar. I'm not shooting anything down. I just find Elune way more interesting, as well as there are a couple of hints at Elune as well with the Night Warrior storyline, the way that Ysera died, all that good stuff. So I'm putting my money on Elune and find out more about Elune itself, because it's another big mystery. Then there's Maldraxxus. Maldraxxus has the missing Primus, which we're assuming is the Rune Carver, and the Rune Carver can kind of predict the future. So what if the Primus can predict the future. So what happens when we restore all the memories of the Rune Carver? What details or what information could the Primus give us? What if he was the one that gave us the warning about the Eternal Ones must stand together against Zovaal? Will he then step up and lead the charge to make that happen? So that could be a plot thread. And of course, the big question about what happens at the end of 9.1. Like, the jailer wants to break out, and I kind of feel, like he's going to succeed in what he wants to do. He's going to be breaking out of the Maw. He's going to be, merging with the Arbiter. He's going to accomplish his goals, and then how will that play out? We jokingly talked about like this massive cosmic war, where all these forces show up, and Azeroth wakes up as she yoinks the sword out of her back. She's ready to fight, and Illidan shows up, like Endgame-esque. It does seem to point towards shifting the storyline into a more cosmic storytelling, especially when you got like a book that's talking about morality and what these cosmic things want. And that also flows into what exactly does the jailer want, because even though we know that the jailer's out there, and we've got a couple of descriptions here and there, there have been people that decided to ally with him, that listened to his words, and they were like, well, might be bold, but you're not a bad guy. So they decided to ally with him and agree with his views. Who is this Pantheon of Death that imprisoned Zovaal? Who is the arbiter to judge these souls? What did the jailer do that they consider as a betrayal? How did he go from being amongst their brothers and sisters to this monster that must never be released? Did the Shadowlands, and I think that we in an earlier stream talked about this idea as well, and I'm still putting money on it. My take on it is that the Shadowlands, as we see it right now, is not the way that the afterlife is supposed to be. I think that Ouroboros, with a sorting system, all the different domains that we see, with like the Pantheon of Death in there, I think it's a machine. I think it's man-made, cosmic-made, in order to keep the jailer imprisoned. Because basically what happens is you're a soul, your soul goes to the Shadowlands, you bring your anima with you. Well, what does that anima do? Well, part of it keeps the realm going, and part of it funnels into keeping the jailer imprisoned. Yeah, okay, that's just a machine where your little cogwheel in the whole process. That makes no sense. Afterlife, knowing what the afterlife is like, I cannot imagine that the Shadowlands as we see it right now is actually going to be the way that we will leave it behind. I think with a jailer breaking out, defeated, re-imprisoned, whatever, I think that the Shadowlands, the whole machine, is going to be torn down at the end of the road. And therefore, Sylvanas' plans of, I will set us all free, will actually come true, because now we no longer will get an eternal job. We don't have to be a stupid Valkyr or a vampire having parties or farm anima or Stygia. We can just be dead and enjoy our afterlives together in the in-between. That's my take on this is where the Shadowlands going.
Okay. What about, I don't want this, I mean, kind of some side plots and subplots. What about things like Ardenweald and the Drust? I mean, if Ardenweald is going to get assaulted, probably Drust are going to be involved pretty heavily with it. Maybe some Bonsam-di Muzala action.
Well, Muzala's under control. Bonsamdi made him fair for now. Bonsamdi kept him under control. The Drust have also been kicked back by the Winter Queen, but are they completely gone? No, definitely a fair point there.
Gorak-Tul.
I would love
with Gorak-Tul or whatever his name was. And
Gorak-Tul is also gone. Jaina killed him. Aw, poor Gorak-Tul. But there would definitely be opportunity. Like we've seen bits and pieces of the Emerald Dream. We've seen bits and pieces of the Emerald Nightmare. We've got that one scenario where we go into Tros, the Blighted Lands, with Jaina's mother, and we go and save Jaina. They could expand upon that. They could make that much larger and then flow it into a Loon storyline. What about Ysera? Is she now forever bound to Ardenweald? Or is it going to be more for our dragon friends? Yeah, that could definitely be a thing.
Okay. So if you were to guess, let's see, 9.1. If you were to get, let's just assume for a second that this expansion is probably going to mimic release schedule and structure of the past two. So we're looking at likely 2 more major raids and maybe a mini raid somewhere along the way, like a three boss raid like we had with Helia, etc. What would your prediction be for the 2 major raids remaining for the expansion, and if there was like a little small setup storyline, Trials of Valor style raid, that one as well?
So 2 major raids and a small one in between. That is a really good question. Like my mind shoots to a broker raid.
Really?
I have to deal with the threat of the brokers. My mind shoots to a domain of life raid where we have to figure out a way to fix Anduin. Might as well fix Sylvanas in the process and bring them back to life. Me up inside. So a domain of life, think Emerald Dream, Emerald Nightmare. And then we at some point have to deal with the jailer. And that's gonna be on a astral plane of cosmic forces. Have you ever seen Spider-Man, where they brought like their greatest units on this chessboard and they started fighting each other in a cosmic war? That's gonna be us.
Okay, we're gonna be chess pieces. We always are chess pieces,
Okay.
though, to be fair.
I mean, have you done Karazhan? Or it's just gonna be that. It's gonna be like a massive Sargeras behind us, moving us around. It's gonna be great.
What if the mini raid is just Trials of Valor, but backwards, and we go fight Odin at the end to slug it to him?
Helia
from
was
Helia's
right
side?
all along. Well, speaking of Helia, there is still that storyline, because Helia has not been mentioned as a boss in that Maw raid.
There's how many? We've had 5 of 10 confirmations for that.
Yeah.
So we've had Sylvanas, the Eye, Terragru, the I forget the exact, where all the like Garrosh and everybody is.
Domination.
Yeah, that's right. What was the 5th one? I think I have it in here. Oh, here we go. Terragru, Eye of the Jailer, Fate of the Damned, Kel'Thuzad, of course, and Sylvanas. So we have 5 slots remaining for the field your best bosses in Sanctum of Domination. I don't know. Do you think all 10 of them are actually going to be historically relevant? I mean, maybe the first couple of bosses will just be some kind of, amalgamation of evil stuff in them all.
Something like that will surely be a thing. But if we're thinking about characters that could play a big part, like in essence, if they want to go crazy, like the Maw is set to house irredeemable souls that the Warcraft universe has to offer. Pretty much any bad guy in the past that we faced could make a return there, as long as they're like mortal-esque. That could be a thing. Lord Garithos as like an M-boss. Kindy. Oh, like the nightmares of the heroes. Like you go in with like a Jaina and a Thrall and a Bane, and then you'll have to face the spirits of loved ones of them, and they'll be like, no, don't hurt Kindy. And you'll be like, bye, Kindy.
Gul'dan again? No.
Gul'dan, Hogger.
Somehow Archimonde, even though he died in the Nether. What happens to demons that die in the Nether? Do they go to the Shadowlands?
Hard to say. I don't think they've confirmed this. My personal idea behind it is that what happens to souls that die in the Shadowlands. Like souls that die in the Shadowlands become one with the domain. I think demons that die in the Twisted Nether follow the same path.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think Helia could definitely likely be a boss in
both Gul'dans.
And it's a cleave fight.
Prepare for trouble and make it double.
Gul'dan A and Gul'dan B. I don't think that's gonna happen. I think the only one racking my mind that makes most sense and story leading up to it like is Helia. I mean, it's just we've seen them all like 2-3 times now, Kieran campaign beginning, etc. So anyone else? Not that you'd like to see, but that you think would. I mean, yes, technically anyone logically can be thrown in there, right? Irredeemable evil souls, but from the way we're being built up now, right? Without any like ridiculous curveballs, do you think anybody else can be thrown in this raid logically right now?
I'm really racking my brain here, trying to come up with something.
Nathanos. God, no.
Nathanos, hell yeah.
No Thanos.
I mean, there has always been the idea of the entity of the Lich King being something, but I guess now that we're gonna go with the idea of the entity of the Lich King is actually the jailer remote controlling, so that wouldn't be a thing anymore. No, not really something that comes to mind. Although I'll have to get back at you if something interesting comes up. Like we said before, any M bosses that we've done in the past, they might show up. Like a Galagrant, that could be amazing. Galagrant is like the primordial badass proto dragon that started eating his own people and then started to puke them up, and they came back as zombies. That could be pretty cool. A Ronin or a Krasus, but it's anyone's guess really what's gonna pop up.
Yeah, true. I guess we'll just have to see. I'm sure PTR for this will probably come up in sometime in March, because they said soon after 905, which is in March. So that leads us to some Q&A. So chat. I know there's been some questions throughout the show. I wasn't ignoring you. I was just opting to not answer you, which is also known as ignoring. But only because we're going to save Q&A for the end. So if you guys have any questions, we'll spend about 10-15 minutes doing some questions for Nobbel. I'll toss them to him and we'll see what his brain comes up with. If you have any, guys, please tag both of us, preferably, so he can see them ahead of time as well. But definitely tag me so I can see them, so I can read them out to him. So we'll do a bit of Q&A now. Adonis says,
Adonna has a really good question.
Did you review the official WoW comic Anduin, Son of the Wolf, in light of the new developments, especially with the Dreadlord attempt on his life, and the last page, Anduin saying this is the last battle in the presence of the army of Light/Velen?
Yeah, this comic, as far as I recall, because I haven't checked it out in a while, but if I recall it right, the comic has like a prophesized image of Anduin being this old man, and he tells Velen like, "Ooh, this is gonna be our last battle," indicating that he and the army of the light have been like fighting across the cosmos, and this is gonna be their final battle. to this, people have seen Anduin's transformation and they're like, oh, cool. So is this going to line up with the comic panel? Like, what exactly is happening here? To me, and this is purely my take on it, so keep it as that. I think a huge part of the Legion storytelling was to say that prophecies are bullshit. You might recall the Illidan-Velen conversation at the end after they locked away Sargeras. And Illidan decides to stay behind, and he was like, did you not foresee this, prophet? And Velen is like, prophecies. It's not like that's my title. As well as we've had a prophecy on Anduin before in the Velen short story, where he was like wearing this radiant golden armor, and there were like the Naru and the dragons and all that. And that vision, I don't think we should put too much credit into these visions of the future. We also got to keep in mind, on a realistic standpoint, is that there's a team over at Blizzard that develops a storyline. And in 2 years' time, they might say, well, it was a cool idea to have Anduin lead the Army of the Light in the Great Dark Beyond when he's an old man. But wouldn't it be cool if he actually dies? They'll be like, yeah, that would be cool. How do we make that happen? Well, we could just kill him off. It's like, that would be awesome. But then they forget about the previously established thing. So many years, so many story developments, so many different ideas. So I wouldn't put too much emphasis or weight on we've gotten this panel. Could it be a thing? Sure enough, but I don't put too much in it.
Okay. George says, does the soul that is in Kingsmorn affect in any way its wielder? If that's a good person, could he wake up Anduin or something like that?
What is inside of Kingsmorn is unknown. We don't know if it's a soul or a power gem, or we don't know what it is. What they did say in the last Codex interview, which you might want to check out if you're interested about Shadowlands, is that it will have a significance, and that the jailer, the plotter, the schemer that he is, he wouldn't just put something in there for funsies. Some have been wondering, like, is this the spirit of Arthas, perhaps? Who knows? And the question was if it was a good soul, if it would be able to influence him. So the idea is, Anduin is now under the control of the jailer. Will the blade turn him back because the soul's been put in there? I don't think so, because the jailer specifically put that gem inside of the blade. And again, he's a plotter, he's a schemer. I don't think he would give Anduin an Audi.
Okay. Anduin will come to and realize his actions, and that will start his pilgrimage into becoming a pally. What do you think?
I think Anduin is all but in ceremony already a paladin. I mentioned this before. If you go into the Maw, you got like this introductory quest line where you need to escort the leaders. If somebody else is doing that at the same time, and you look at Anduin's model, it will actually say paladin. He has gone from a boy that couldn't swing a sword to losing his father to then actually picking up the whole sword swinging thing. And in essence, what is a paladin if not a weapon-wielding light wielder, right? There's like ceremonies and tomes and different blessings and abilities. Fair enough. As it stands right now, he is still very much a priest. But could he become a paladin, or could they perhaps already see him as a paladin? It came up to the point for me personally that I was reacting to the cutscene and I called Anduin a paladin. Like, why do I call him a paladin? Well, he's been pretty much acting like a paladin for a really long time.
Okay. Can you ask Nobbel about the obvious empty hole in the jailer's chest and the glowing orb in the arbiter's chest? Is that his key that was taken from him?
It's anyone's guess what exactly that is. My take on it, considering that the arbiter has been said to be the final key, I think that they used to be one and that they separated that portion from the jailer. Therefore, she would be the final key for making him whole, for giving him his access point to get out of the Shadowlands again. I think the jailer, as we see him right now, I mean, he is gaining power, but I think he is extremely depowered than what he used to be. That orb, which is really cool. If you look at the model viewer, it's actually a planet, or it looked like a planet. I think they're supposed to be one, because I just find that idea to be really, really cool. Will there be a thing? Time's gonna tell.
Who is the Rune Carver?
Oh, the Rune Carver's the Primus. I think they actually in an interview, I think it was with Beular as well, where they just pretty much confirmed that Primus equals Rune Carver. I mean, everybody is expecting the Rune Carver to get his memories back and to realize, like, oh yeah, I used to be the Primus. That's what everybody is thinking of.
What about Domination runes around Azeroth on the Cosmology map? So I can pull up the Cosmology map here on stream.
Yeah, can we pull up the map?
This is the map, right? I assume from your page.
Uh-huh.
Not seeing any runes.
Enhance.
Let's see.
Can you click
maybe in the
original
top
and then
right?
zoom in?
Yeah.
Around Azeroth, they said. So you got Azeroth the planet.
Where is Azeroth on here?
It's reality.
Oh, reality. Not seeing anything.
Oh, personally, I think that's just cool design rather than suggests more, but who knows? I mean, like runes and symbols, if you look at Warlock spellcasting or whatever you drop on the floor as well, there are symbols in there. Might mean something, but I can say very little about that. It's a cool detail, though. No idea about this.
Okay. I can field this one, Nobbel. Who balded faster? It was me.
Was it?
I've been bald well before you started shaving. I knew you back when you had hair and weren't shaving.
Yeah, but
when
the
you were a
question
young
was
whippersnapper.
balding.
Oh, I mean, I never had hair in my life, so.
Okay, well, there we go.
What do you
Easy.
think? Talking about balance, any thoughts on the keys the jailer wants to acquire and the pillars of creation we have in Azeroth?
Oh, right. This goes a little bit into speculative lore as well as Whispers of Il'gynoth. Il'gynoth is this little grove thing that we found in the Emerald Nightmare, and then later made a return in Battle for Azeroth in Ny'alotha itself. And the Whispers of Il'gynoth has some interesting things to say. I've made 2 videos on them, and in essence, I found that one set of Whispers applies to the event in Battle for Azeroth, and one of them applies to Legion or Shadowlands, something in that direction. But to bring it to the point, one of the Whispers says 5 torches to light our path, 5 keys to open our way. That is the Whisper. So people are like, hey, cool. Il'gynoth whispered about keys. We're going to get some keys and we're going to open the way. For me, I'm still putting my money on those 5 keys being the 5 pillars of creation that we used in order to seal off the gateway at the Tomb of Sargeras, which then led to us going to Arcus, which then led to Sargeras stabbing the world, which then led to the events of Battle for Azeroth, which then led to N'Zoth going into there, which then led into the raid Ny'alotha. That is my long take on these 5 keys, these 5 torches that open the way for Ny'alotha, for N'Zoth, for the old gods to make the way into Azeroth. Also apply to what the jailer's doing? Maybe, but he's got like 1 key and then he's like 3 more left. Now, we don't know if he already has 2 of them in his pockets, which would make 5 in total. It's hard to say. Then there's another whisper, which is the boy king serves at the master's table. 3 lies he will offer you. The boy king being Anduin. He is now serving the jailer, master's table. 3 lies will he offer you. So in the cutscene, when Anduin enters Bastion, Clea lists off 3 amazing things about Anduin, which is why he's worthy to walk in Bastion. So people are like, oh, okay, 3 lies. Anduin being announced with 3 different things. Are those the 3 lies? But then I would argue, and Okhmod's journal, exactly Slintu. Okhmod's journal is a journal you can find from an ogre in Sylvanas in the starting event of Battle for Azeroth. He's like this crazy ogre getting visions and dreams about this lady in dark swirly clouds leading them all off a cliff, splat, splat, splat. But he speaks about one of the whispers already being told. Bound to a throne, no, he is free. Indicating, hinting at like the jailer, you know, being free of his throne, potentially. So if Okhmod's journal says that one of the lies has already been told, then it cannot apply to 3 lies told as Anduin was announced. Yeah, then there's another cool idea, which is the boy king serves at the master's table. 3 lies will he offer you. If we for a moment disregard the journal, and this flows into the line of the jailer has the ability to completely disguise if somebody is actually serving him. Right? So he's got an Anduin serving at the table, going to Bastion, but he has 3 more of them potentially. A Thrall, a Jaina, a Bane. 3 lies he will offer you. You thought that you rescued them? No, that was a lie. So they're going to send off a Thrall to Ardenweald, a Jaina to Revendreth, a Bane into Maldraxxus, or Thrall to Maldraxxus to meet with his mom or whatever, and it's going to be like, surprise! I think that would be really cool, but we'll see.
Okay. I thought Garrosh was in Revendreth, not the Maw, with relation to discussing his potential presence in the raid.
Unknown where Garrosh is. We know that Garrosh was in Revendreth at some point in time, where Side the Nefrius milked him of his delicious anima for a really long time. But that that presentation where they talk about Revendreth, we do not know the time it takes place. Is that the moment that we arrive in Revendreth? Is that when they make the announcements? There is a book you can find in the game. But it's not impossible for the moment. Say that Garrosh was being milked the moment that we arrived in Revendreth, then it's still not impossible to have taken Garrosh out of his cage and drop him into the maw. So it's not impossible for them to have taken Garrosh out.
Okay. Do you think when the jailer gets all the keys, he will look like that leaked image before Shadowlands came out, where he has the beard, etc.?
No, I think that leaked image was concept art and has actually been used for one of the mobs inside of Torghast. And in between, they had a different idea as to what the jailer should look like.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Which is a good choice.
I do know the mob.
I mean, it's my
actually.
interpretation. I have no idea if that's actually what happens, but yeah.
Okay. Thoughts on Draka? Oh, you kind of touched on this earlier, but thoughts on Draka being the Maldraxxus key. Do they not refer to her as such in the short?
They do, but in context, they refer to her as being the key to Maldraxxian's victory. And in essence, she has been the key. In essence, she was the key to uniting our covenant, bringing it all together, and actually saving Maldraxxus, saving the Shadowlands. Now, could she have been the one that the Primus entrusted his key to? Hidden it in there? The Primus, maybe, but at the same time, it could also easily apply to what they actually showed us in the leveling experience.
Was the jailer the original arbiter?
Unknown. Like, if we go with the speculation that they once were one entity, then there's definitely possibility that he was once upon a time fulfilling that role. But that also goes into the idea as to when exactly did these Eternal Ones step up and lead the Shadowlands. And we don't know. Like, were they always there, or did they only show up because they had to imprison the jailer? Right? If this whole system was set up in order to imprison the jailer, then the arbiter's job of sorting souls was not there until the jailer showed up.
One guy, we answered your question with the Il'gynoth Whispers. Indirectly, well, directly, but just not yours. What happened to the ancients described as having gone back to their forest to recuperate? Lots of types of ancients got killed off. We haven't seen them in Ardenweald. Did they become something else? Where have my trees gone? Cloud Song done dirty. Pepe hands.
It's Mefuzela for that question. That's really nice of you. Mefuzela is very much into trees for some reason. Trees and Worgen. Go figure. Mefuzela, just for you, I'm going to say that trees don't have any souls. And too bad.
What about the mount we're getting?
It has no soul. Otherwise, why would it let us ride it, right? Just shows up. No, but I have no idea what happens to those spirits. Maybe they become part of the land in Ardenweald. Maybe they run around as a little fox and they'll be like, I used to be a tree in life, but now I really like running around things. I like trees, you know. Sylvanas likes trees as well. Maybe they're hiding, you know?
This question is, I'll try to... thoughts on how Sylvanas is working with the jailer. When Arthas killed her, who was basically being controlled by the jailer there?
Sorry, can you repeat the question? Yeah, why is she working with the jailer? Because I think she was killed by Arthas.
I think the question is more so when Arthas killed Sylvanas, who exactly? What was the jailer's plan there? Were they still both under the jailer control? Was the jailer controlling Arthas only then? Was he controlling anyone then?
Well, we talked about this earlier during the stream. Arthas was not mind controlled. Let's be fair. Arthas was not mind controlled. He was manipulated in order to pick up Frostmourne, and then when he picked up Frostmourne, he gave up a piece of his soul, which definitely made the influence of the jailer stronger, or the Lich King, we should say. He was not a mind-controlled Muppet. He still had emotions. He still had feelings. Arthas chose his actions. That what makes him an interesting character rather than a mind-controlled Muppet. If you're really curious, by the way, for those out there that are like, I would love to know more about what's been going on with Arthas and why do you say he was not mind-controlled? Because Warcraft 3 shows us this. There's a book called Arthas Rise of the Lich King, and it gives you insight into what Arthas was thinking as he went through the Warcraft 3 campaign and before that and after that. It's fantastic. For example, there's a moment where Arthas shows up and he wants the urn of his father. And Uther is like, why do you want this urn? It contains your father's ashes. Do you want to piss on him one last time before you let his country to rot? And Arthas is like, I didn't know what it had, nor does it matter. But meanwhile, the book is like, a jolt shot through Arthas. He had no idea that his father's ashes were inside of this urn, but the Dreadlords knew. Test after test they give him. Can he truly go through with this? Fight his former friend and mentor, Uther the Lightbringer? He harnessed his rage and he prepared for battle. So there was so much more going on to Arthas than what the game was able to portray. And he was not a mindless puppet. So what was the jailer thinking when it comes to killing Sylvanas? Very much comes in line with stuff that we don't know. Was he always planning on using the Banshee Queen? Or was he, was he like a backup plan when Arthas failed him? I think, to be honest, the second option, he just made use of a good situation. Like, oh, cool, you killed yourself. Well, welcome to hell. I'm the jailer. This is what I want to accomplish. You want to join? I think that's what happened. I don't think it was a master plan.
Why isn't the light featured in the Shadowlands as an actual place? Maybe the thing we call the light comes after the Shadowlands?
Because the light is a different cosmic force than the afterlives in the Shadowlands. So the light has its own domain. Now, that doesn't mean that the light can't enter the Shadowlands. As we see in Revendreth, the light has attacked Revendreth out of retaliation for something that the Nephrius has done. But it's not the afterlife. It's not where your soul goes in general. They have made the distinction. Once again, it's the Lost Codex interview where they were talking about, for example, there is a soldier in Northrend, which is a reference to something really beautiful, and eventually the Naru show up and they carry his soul into the light. So even though his soul was normally supposed to go to the Shadowlands, because he had such a connection to the light, they actually picked him up. But that is the exception, not the rule. Bride and Brad, that's the one.
Okay. If Elune is the Winter Queen's sister, what has she done to piss off the Winter Queen? Like right before rezzing Ysera?
I think it's like, and this is in the realm of mythology. I think it's just the idea behind Ardenweald is supposed to be the autumn and winter to the Emerald Dreams, spring and summer. So imagine that you have like a sister. Like the Winter Queen is pretty stoic, right? She's not too much with words, and she's like the winter, the calm, the rest and relaxation. Now imagine that your sister is like, hi, I'm spring. Let's have some fun, baby. If that was your sister, then you would be pretty pissed off as well. It's like, everybody likes you. You bring life and dreams and summer party. I hate you. Puh. So that's why they have like, they're like opposites of each other, even though they're part of the same cycle.
Okay.
That explains it.
Hey, man, that's what my sister sounds like. I'm just kidding. What happens when a mortal dies in the Shadowlands? Can we slay Sylvanas, then send her to the Maw and slay her again?
No. If a soul dies in the Shadowlands, they become one with the lands. With the exception of like having special tethers, like there's a reason, which once again, that's something that we're going to be diving into later down the line. There's a reason why we keep coming back. There's a reason why when we die, we've got like these tethers to the first ones. So that's something that they're going to dive into. Someone like Sylvanas, maybe, but then that would be the exception, and again, not the rule. Otherwise, all the jailer's forces would also be unbeatable, and just be like, hello, we're back again. Oh, it's Wednesday, it's reset day? Yeah, we're back again. That's the reason. We're immortal. Come at us.
What do you think about the Horsemen coming back for the Maw raid, the Domination raid?
Horsemen?
The 4 Horsemen.
Like the original Naxxramas 4 Horsemen?
I guess it says the Horsemen, so I assume so.
Interesting. Possible, partially, because Derek's daddy, Alexandros Mograine, he was one of the 4 Horsemen, and Alexandros is part of the Maldraxxus campaign, or the Covenant. There is Baron Riven there, then there is the Lightwielder one, and Madame something. So there would be 3 Horsemen. I mean, you can't get 4 Horsemen without one of them, so Baron Riven there would have to sit in. I personally don't feel warm one way or another. Like, it doesn't really matter to me. I fought them before in Naxxramas. It's like, yeah, okay, cool. They come back. I don't really care. But could they? Yeah, potentially.
Okay. How does Argus, the Titan of Death, fit into the pantheon of death? Is he the brother of Zoval?
Argus is an interesting bit. So we've spoken about how there's like different cosmic domains and how mortal souls go to the Shadowlands. A being of light, say for example a Naru, you'd imagine they go back to Naru land, and a old god goes back to Voidlord land. As we know, the demons, they go back to Demon land, also known as the Twisting Nether. They are not mortal souls; they are magical beings, and they got their own little domain. Except, to add a bit to the confusion, is that they also added the line, except if they're beings connected to death. So Argus would be a Titan. He would go to Titanland. Except he's also a being that's connected to death. And what happened to Argus? Did he go to the Shadowlands? Did he go to Titanlands? We don't really know. There has been the attack on the Arbiter, which was like this massive red ball. My personal interpretation on what broke the Arbiter was Sire Denethrius potentially using Kil'Thuzz in Nafria and make like a massive attack of Anima, and that broke the Arbiter. But could it be Argus? Maybe. That could be a thing. But the connection between Argus and the Pantheon of Death... The Pantheon of Death, so the Eternal Ones, have been set to be Titan Plus. We do know that the Rune Carver has memories about the Titans. If you bring back memories, there's like a memory of Aeonar and a memory of Aman'Thul, I believe, or Norganon or whatever. So apparently the Rune Carver, which we're expecting to be the Primus, knows about the Titans. Then the Primus also had this buddy that allowed him to view the time ways and do like all kinds of tests about tactics. The Titans or the Pantheon of Titans might know about these Eternal Ones, but are they related to one another? I don't think so, but I could be wrong.
You're never wrong, Nobbel.
Well...
What do you think the odds during the Sylvanas ending / encounter in the raid that Nathanos comes in and kill steals? Or is involved with the finale in some way, I suppose?
I mean, involved, we talked about he's going to jump in front of the attacks and he's going to be like a bubble shield and you just have to get rid of Nathanos, and you're like, no, stop hurting my Banshee Queen. I would be very surprised if Nathanos would slay Sylvanas. He seems to be the character that is loyal until the bitter end.
Okay. Why aren't there
no matter what, he is in the corner.
Why aren't there more dragons in the Shadowlands?
Dragons in the Shadowlands... First, we got to go with the idea of, we've seen it. Sorry, I was thinking about the idea like, are dragons even mortal souls, and therefore would they go to the Shadowlands or would they go to Dragonlands? But we got to keep in mind, Ysera has showed up in Ardenweald. Now, Ysera has a connection to the Emerald Dream, to Elune, potentially dragged in there by Elune herself. So where would dragons end up in? Maybe a Dragonland. Alternative is that the Shadowlands have been said to have an infinite amount of domains. So we've only partied in like 5 of them. There's an infinite amount. So even though you haven't ran into a spirit yet, that they could just be partying in one of the domains that we don't have a gateway to. So they might make that available in the future or something like that.
Okay. How do you personally think Uther's story is going to finish?
Uther's storyline. Uther's storyline at this point in time is that he is given into vengeance and he realizes this. His soul splitting apart with the pain of Frostmourne has made him drop his student into the maw, and he feels regret for this. Now he has an Anduin running around. That's pretty much an Arthas. So that will be a really good opportunity for Uther to step up and do whatever it takes in order to bring Anduin back, to get it right this time. As well as come clean about what he has done to Arthas and make like a rescue mission, and therefore do something, sacrifice himself. A conclusion. I think our Uther deserves his time in the Shadowlands, be it in a Bastion or just in the afterlife. I think Uther has earned to chill, because let's not forget, I mean, it is a choice that he made, but his wound was inflicted by the powers of the Maw, so he will 100% become a Paragon. He could definitely become a Paragon. That could be a thing as well. Yeah. So something like that, like a new role in the Shadowlands. I don't think that they'll end and finish Uther Spirit forever. Yeah.
Okay. Why do you think Sylvanas is seen as so evil, but Jaina isn't?
Sylvanas caused the genocide of the Night Elves. Jaina threatened to flood Orgrimmar and decided that she wasn't going to be in Arthas.
Okay.
Like
Good stuff.
there's no comparison to what Sylvanas has done to Jaina. Like the same.
Do you have anything to say about the blue Shadowlands eating aberrations, like the boss in Nathria? I think he's talking about the World Destroyers, and their threat to the Shadowlands. Feels like nobody acknowledged them at all, really.
You mean the Devourers?
Yes, the World Devourers.
I love the Devourers. Devourers are like low-key one of those things that is super interesting, because the Devourers, they come from the in-between. And my personal speculation is that the in-between is actually what the Shadowlands is supposed to be. The in-between is what you travel through as you go between the different domains. You go like, that's the in-between. So if the Shadowlands was man-made and placed upon something, maybe the in-between is what it's supposed to be like all along. In Corfia, we are also going to dive into Devourer lore, because Corfia is dragged out of the in-between. So we're going to learn more about the Devourers, and they're really, really cool. They're drawn to anima. They want to devour things. That's why they're called Devourers. And we're going to learn more about them.
Okay. Oh, yeah, true, I guess. For Carthia, indeed. What do you think about... we answered the key with the Runecarver stuff, guys, already. I know some of you might just be joining, but if I skip your question, it's because we've already covered it at some point during our talk or during an answer. What do you think of the first ones being above Titans and progenitors of the universe?
Yeah. Like, way that they seem to be pitching it right now is that there was once upon a time a cosmic bang, which caused everything to come out, like Naru and Titans and demons, everything. That are the first ones that brought order to the cosmos. So were the first ones responsible for the Big Bang? Or were they, like, as the name implies, the first ones to be like, oh, this is a cool universe? They definitely seem to be above it all. Yeah.
There's also a line from Naifu that might have hinted that we left a bit of a void on Pantheon, but I don't really recall the line. Sorry, hinted. There was a line from Naifu, like yeah, that might have hinted that we left a bit of a void on the Pantheon, but I don't recall the line specifically.
There was a line by Naifu, so Zolotov, that we left a bit of a void in the Pantheon, as in like literal void powers in the Pantheon, or like a gap in the Pantheon?
I don't know. Drader is going to have to clarify, but that's the question.
Trying to recall the line as well. Yeah, I would have to know the line if what we're talking about.
Okay, well, I'll follow up, Drader, in a bit. I was kind of discussing this already, but she mentioned that people who died in the alternate timeline of Warlords are also in Shadowlands. Could that possibly mean that there could be duplicate souls of the same character in Shadowlands, such as Cho'Gall?
Yeah. So here's the thing. We know about alternate realities, and they've established that if there's an alternate reality, if you leave it alone, alternate reality just goes poof, it goes away, it's all fine and dandy. But if you mess around with it, that alternate reality stays. Think, for example, alternate Draenor. Now, to keep it easy, to keep it really simple, we have our Gul'dan that died on Azeroth, and then we have alternate Gul'dan that died on our Azeroth. Realities go to the same Shadowlands. How does that work? And now my real simple take on it would be that, considering there are an infinite amount of domains where you can end up in, the chances are that you run into the same soul really, really low, because there's that many domains. Then, as we've seen in the Shadowlands, souls don't look exactly the way that they did on our world. Sometimes you recognize them like a bloofer, but most of the time they're just, I don't know, running around like a fox or a little ghost. So who's to even say that you would recognize Gul'dan for being Gul'dan? That's not the answer that Blizzard goes with. A couple of months ago, they gave an explanation as to what happens with alternate souls, and the idea behind it is that all souls are part of a rope. And the rope has different strains. So you got to imagine different strains, different characters. And at some point, that rope comes together again. And then it goes into the Shadowlands. But it doesn't make any sense because the Arbiter judges your soul. So what soul does she use in order to judge you? For example, Garrosh. Garrosh has been said to be the worst version of Garrosh that he could be. That we were just out of luck with our Garrosh. Is that Garrosh the one that they're judging him on? Because he ended up in Revendreth. What about all the other good ones? Do they just tag along when they become part of this rope? Makes no sense in my humble opinion.
Draka talks about the Primus missing since before she arrived there, though. So highly doubt the Primus made Draka the key unless there was a middleman.
Exactly. Yeah.
What do you think is going to happen to Arthas?
I mean,
oh, sorry, go on.
Primus as well. Like Primus could predict these moments, but yeah, fair enough. It like I said, it could have just been a key to saving Eldraxis, as we done in the starting area.
Okay. What do you think is going to happen with Arthas?
I mean, if Arthas has truly been the torturous plaything of the jailer for all these years, then there's nothing left of Arthas. There's just a broken husk that is going to be a raid boss that we're going to kill. Then there are some wondering, like, is his spirit part of Shalamorn? Could definitely be a thing. So therefore, his future is tied to Anduin. Like a little voice in there, jailer expecting Arthas to be completely dark and corrupted, but no, there's still a tiny bit of good in there. Maybe which could flow into the suggestion earlier on where Shalamorn might actually be Anduin's salvation. Maybe. For me, I love the story of Arthas. It is one of my favorite stories in the entire Warcraft universe. Therefore, I'm like, don't mess with it. That's why I'm so happy that they actually confirmed that Arthas was not mind-controlled, that they haven't changed their mind on that. So I don't want them to be messing with Arthas. They can have him in a cage with like a little stay a while and listen, and we can see what he's been doing in the Shadowlands. Just let him be. Don't bring him back. The only thing you can do is mess it up. Just let him be. Arthas' story is good, start to finish. Don't mess with it.
What is the Maw? There are plenty of city structures laid about. Is that just the first city from some of the first ones or something else? Then does that mean the Maw was or does that mean the Maw was a while after?
Hard to say. It falls into line like where did the Maw come from? Was the Maw designed in order to keep the jailer imprisoned? Think, for example, the elemental plane for the elemental lords, like the Firelands, for example. That was tapped into, created in order to contain the elements. Is that a similar thing as they done with the jailer, and therefore did the first ones, the eternal ones, actually craft the Maw in order to contain him? There have been some really cool explorers in the Maw that have been looking around, trying to find like first one's relic and architecture and stuff like that. I'm a big fan of the idea that the Shadowlands was crafted, as I've touched a couple of times on now. So it could have been like one of the designs of the first ones in the past that they reused, or we're gonna find out. It's really hard to say, but there's definitely architecture. Like if they actually did something for archaeology, I would imagine that the Maw is the place where you find first one's archaeology fragments, as well as Oribos.
Okay. If Anduin were to die, who do you think would replace him as king, as he currently has no heir to his throne? Might the Alliance also transition to a council leadership?
Greymane has been given the job in the novel. Oh Lord, Before the Storm, I think. Greymane has been appointed. Like, if anything happens to me, you're going to be the one that's got to rule the kingdom. Now, in Shadowlands, we find out that even though Greymane was told to do the thing, Greymane doesn't want to do the thing, and he gave the job to Trevelyan. Trevelyan currently sits on the throne in Stormwind. So if Anduin dies, Trevelyan stays on, I would imagine, and then just Trevelyan keeps up with the line, and he makes the Alliance way more hostile than it's ever been, which is interesting on its own.
Did Sylvanas burn Teldrassil and start the war just to send more souls to the Maw?
Her plan was not to burn down the tree at the start. That was an in-between thought, but at the end of the day, the result is still the same. She sent a whole bunch of souls down into the Maw, and that was the overarching goal of Battle for Azeroth. The war against the Alliance was to send as much souls to the Maw as she could. But the original plan was to occupy Teldrassil and then slowly chip away at their enemy. In this case, she just decided, F it, we're going to burn it to the ground, send a whole bunch in one go, and we'll ride this out.
Relating to probably a bit of a chat earlier, it says, okay, so then why is Zorval so interested in the light?
Zoval being interested in the light is a bit of a personal interpretation, and one that I was on board as well. There is Anduin reaching out to the light in the maw, and after he does that, Zoval is like, interesting. You are exactly the thing that I was looking for. And we all were like, oh, cool. That's because Anduin can call upon the light, and an Arthas can call upon the light. That's interesting. Like, why is he so interested in the light? But in an interview, they said that he was looking for somebody to walk into Bastion, and I guess being a light wielder is just a coincidence. Then we also have in Revendreth, where they were messing about with the lights with Sire Denethrius, and how that is going to play out. Like, Sire Denethrius was doing a whole bunch of experimentations and actually caused a war with the lights, which is kind of cool. So they were definitely poking at the Naru, and the Naru kind of poked back. So yeah, I mean, but was that the Denethrius himself, or was it actually something that the jailer was doing?
Does Sylvanas not have 2 Valkyr left to bring her back to life, or does that not work in Shadowlands?
I mean, it's my interpretation, but the way that I see it is that the Valkyrie worked on Azeroth, because when Sylvanas dies, she goes to the Shadowlands, she goes to the Maw, and the Valkyrie have the capability of bringing her back to life, because they drag her spirit out of the Shadowlands. But if she dies in the Shadowlands, it's not like she goes to Azeroth, right? She just dies. So I don't think the Valkyrie would be her bonus lives, because if that's the case, I'm pretty sure the jailer has like a Maw-sworn army now. I don't think we'd be able to kill her that many times.
If souls who die in the Shadowlands become part of the land, are we literally just stepping on millions of dead people everywhere?
Yeah. And breathing it in as well. In Maldraxxus, they got like this line with anima. It used to be like as thick as dust or something like that. Yeah, they like to breathe it in as well. Bathe in it, snort it. Yeah.
We know that when we return to Azeroth, there will be a time jump forward. Do we know if it will be a few years or more like decades?
They've touched upon time in the Q&As, and they've said that time was a construct of order, not so much of the Shadowlands itself. So while in the Shadowlands it might feel like you've been there for millennia, outside there's not going to be a whole massive time jump. To the question, will we do a time jump once we come out of this expansion, is entirely up to Blizzard. They pretty much every expansion, they got the opportunity to do a time jump. It's like, it has benefits because you can fast forward and, oh my god, look at what happened to Azeroth. But at the same time, you also cut out storylines that you've been slowly building up, and you're like, yeah, we can't do those anymore because we just did a 10 years time skip.
The brokers seemingly can travel all through the Shadowlands. Has there been mention that they can go to other planes of existence like Titanland or Voidland, etc.?
They can definitely travel to other planets. They have the capability, technology to go into Titanlands or Void Domain. I haven't found anything that hints at that, but is it impossible?
Oh, I thought you were going to add to that. Okay. Any more info that...
Sorry, I didn't hear you. What did I need to answer?
No. I thought you were going to keep going on it. What?
No. I was done. Like, will it happen?
Yeah, you're good. Any more info that could be in relation to the fairy dude in Maw of Souls? Fairy as in, like, the ferryman, not, like, I'm going to enchant your urethra.
Fairy dude in the Maw of Souls? Do you mean, like, the boss in the dungeon Maw of Souls? Like, what are we talking about?
You want to clarify on that one, Zakuza? Well, we'll catch up with it in a bit. So we have to hear from him and Draydra. Alun's intervention in Val'Sharah maybe sent Ysera to the Winter Queen?
Maybe. Like, they say that Ysera is one of the last ones to enter the Shadowlands. So we know that the Shadowlands, the Machine of Death, got broken somewhere around the Legion periods. But for example, a Ursoc ended up in Ardenweald as well. Ursoc died in the Emerald Nightmare Raid. Ysera died before the Emerald Nightmare Raid. Therefore, the machine of death was not broken when she died. So it could have very well been that she was supposed to go into Ardenweald like that. Because if you go through the whole resurrection podling seedlings or whatnot, there are things like the dragons from Pandaria, the serpents that show up as well. So if serpents show up, why not dragons, right?
What do you think Irel will do in the Shadowlands?
Will Yrel get a part to play in the Shadowlands? Well, Yrel is gonna show up in the grand finale. We were talking about like this Marvel Endgame where it's gonna be like light and void and chaos and all that, and she's gonna be part of Team Light, and she's gonna be like for the light, and then Garrosh. Yeah, it's for the light, and then this alternate Garrosh that has decided to join with this light army is gonna be like, yeah, Loctaro light, and then they're gonna be light. It's gonna be great. They're like this massive light ball in the sky.
Methuselah, your friend again, says, do either of you actually care about Tyrande or her character? I find it very hard to not see her as an angsty Mary Sue with a stick up her ass and an ego that's harder to kill than an old god.
I find Tyrande it's so sad because Tyrande in the books, badass, amazing, so cool, so awesome. The powers that she and Malfurion display. Tyrande in the books is fantastic. In the game, Lord, Tyrande in the game. They do such a poor job of portraying her in the game. Same with Malfurion. Tyrande, my love, where are you? No, it's like, oh man.
That quest line.
So it's so sad. I wish they did it better. Like, honestly, if they would have brought the book Tyrande into the game, it would be so much better.
Do you think we will ever get a chance to have Gen see his son again and have him forgive or understand the Forsaken?
Gen forgive the Forsaken? Ooh, Gen doesn't seem the type to forgive, though. But seeing his son again, I mean, we are in the Shadowlands, right? Unless his son became like a Kyrian and gave up all of his memories. Who are you again? My son. I'm a Kyrian. I don't know this, man.
Is it possible that Elune is the result of the cosmic bang, covering both light and dark, yin and yang? And could the jailer be attempting to harness the power of death/dark and light to control the universe from Elune?
Could Elune be insert this here? At this point in time, we don't know what Elune is. What we do know, I mean, what we know about Elune is that some way, somehow, the Night Elves found out about her with like information by the Well of Eternity. She is reflected in the moons around Azeroth. But considering that the Night Warrior ritual is not purely Azeroth itself, indicate that Elune is also not just purely Azeroth itself. She is global. So could she be the result of the Big Bang, and could she be like this massive thing? Absolutely. I'm personally thinking that she is like the source of life, and that there's like a source of death. So I'm personally thinking that she's more in the direction of the source of life. But could she be? Yeah, definitely. It's just, it's hard to sell it when you don't have that much to back it up and be like, this is what we can say about Elune, because a whole lot is still mystery, right? We can't pick out a book and be like, yeah, this is what we know and this is what it gives one way or the other. What was the second part of the question?
Could the jailer be attempting to harness the power of dark and light to control the universe from Elune, if the Elune thing were the case?
So far, what we know about the jailer's plans is what we know from Sire Denethrius, which is death will wash over us all, and out of this torrent, there will be nothing but those that, made his dreams come true. We know from the Warcraft website that the jailer is a force that wants to consume the cosmos, and we know from the jailer that he wants to break out of the maw, get all his keys, and get out. That's what he wants to do. So far as I'm aware, there has not been a connection established between the jailer and Elune. Okay. Will that still be added later? I mean, that's anyone's guess, but I don't recall the jailer going particularly after Elune. And again, that light connection towards Anduin, apparently that turns out that he wasn't necessarily going towards the light, but more so towards somebody that could enter Bastion. And the whole Revendreth light business could have also just been Denethrius messing about. Yeah.
So if you recall the line from earlier from Xal'atath that we were talking about, The line was, "Long we sought entrance to this domain, to think we have a mortal to thank."
Oh. Oh, do they mean bringing Zolotov into the Pantheon fight with Argus, and Zolotov then whispers to you like, "Oh, thank you for bringing us into your domain. The mortal made it happen." But that flows more in line with the cosmic chart and the cosmic forces being in an eternal tug of war with one another. So the Void Lords wanted to enter the domain of order, corrupt the Titan spirit and all that. That flows well into line of Zolotov saying like, "Ooh, thank you for bringing us into it. Who knew that a mortal was going to accomplish it?" And the connection between Elune and the jailers through Sylvanas. There is a small line, as we're going to go back to that previous question. There's a small line in the short story that came with the collector's edition in which Sylvanas blames Elune for standing in her way. But that is based upon the Night Elf belief of they will say that Elune still saved us, and that is flowing in line with not killing off Malfurion. What is an interesting notion is that they do say that she made life her enemy, and that is a battle that you cannot win. That also supports the idea that the domain of life is at some point going to pop up and be like, "Hey, what up, Sylvanas? Heard you've been bringing a whole bunch of death. How about some life?"
Do you think Khadgar might come back soon? He pulled himself out of BFA focusing on saving Azeroth. He's been in Karazhan for far too long.
I think Khadgar's having a grand old time inside of Karazhan. You know, he's just reading his books, telling people to get off his lawn. He saw some old gods run by, and he was like, "Get off my lawn, dirty old gods." Nah, he's chilling. Last we know about Khadgar is mentioned in Exploring Azeroth, where Shaw and Flint Fairwind go about checking out these artifacts. And Khadgar's just chilling in the Tower of Karazhan. He's reading his books. He's fixing up the place. He's great. Now, what is interesting, and I kind of wonder if that's going to play into something, we haven't really spoken about this. The dungeon, the broker dungeon, a heist with powerful artifacts. And in Exploring Azeroth, the Eastern Kingdoms, we saw Shaw and Flint Fairwind check up on artifacts on Azeroth. What if the new book that's coming out, which is going to be Kalimdor, what if that will tie into the dungeon, which could be interesting if they're going after these powerful artifacts? Or maybe they will go into the Tower of Karazhan and check out Khadgar's artifacts, which sounded way dirtier than I expected it to be. But, you know, they could in that way, you know?
What about King Varian Rin's soul coming back to bring back Anduin to the light? And King Landon Rin, grandfather to Varian, shows his face for the first time in game.
Be well down with that. Break the Rin curse. Spirits of Rin breaking the Rin curse. Sylvanas told Anduin, like, your family legacy is death. And then here come these spirits to help him out.
What do you think is happening on Azeroth while we're AFK? Still teaming with undead? Is SL stuff leaking through?
I know that they've been getting reports as to what we've been doing in the Shadowlands, so they know like our leaders have been saved and whatnot. What I think would be cool is if someone like Tyrellian goes and abuses his seat of power to start some stuff with the Horde. But then again, in Battle for Azeroth, we just dealt with a faction war, so maybe we should just let that rest for a moment. Imagine just chilling on Azeroth, by the way, you're just looking at Icecrown and you see like this gaping hole in the world, and all of a sudden the jailer goes like, "Yoo-hoo, I'm coming," and then he slowly crawls out of it. That must be amazing. Chill on Azeroth now, just see that happen like Attack on Titan style.
I wonder if he takes a different form if he comes to Azeroth. Just like souls take different forms going into the Shadowlands.
Ooh. He'll have hair. Flowing hair.
No.
Bastard.
Speaking of Zoval, what do you think that Zoval exactly did to be punished?
I think the Zoval went, and this is, again, I'm working on a video for Monday, so I'm still working out the details, and it's pure speculation. I think Zoval went against the designs of the first ones, and I think that is what they considered to be a betrayal. I think Zoval wanted to bring freedom to the entire cosmos by going against what the first ones have ordered. Why do I think this? Because he needed to get someone like Sylvanas on board, and Sylvanas is all about that freedom and doing whatever it takes in order to get the job done. And I think that's why they imprisoned him.
Okay. Do you think we'll learn more about the Void Lords through this expansion? They seem to be taking quite a back seat compared to recent lore.
Maybe. I mean, the Dreadlords, the whole infiltration book, does have Dreadlords infiltrate the domain of the Void as well. That has like 1,000 different truths. And I still hold on to the idea that Zalatov, being an infiltrator from the Shadowlands, could be a really cool agent to make an appearance and be like, hey, I'm the one to send it to the Shadowlands. Next to that, the Void Lords. I mean, it's a plot thread that they can dive into in the future. If they ever want to bring back Sargeras and the Pantheon, I could easily see him stand with us against the threat of the Void Lords in the Great Dark Beyond. Right now, we're dealing with the Afterlife, so not so much the Void Lords.
As to extend that question earlier about the brokers being able to, potentially can they travel different planes, etc., the Void, the Naru. They say they do have a captured Naru in Maldraxxus that they, pit in that theater for combat. And an extension further to this says, speaking of the brokers, am I crazy or are they strikingly similar to the Ethereals?
They are very much like the Ethereals, up to the point where people are wondering, is this what happened to some of the Ethereals that were dealing on Karesh? Is this what happens when an Ethereal dies? Did the Ethereals evolve themselves? They are spookily, creepily the same as Ethereals from the Burning Crusade. When it comes to the kidnapped Naru, doesn't necessarily mean that they brought it out of Naru lands. It might have been brought over from Outland, for example. Now, we know that this Naru specifically wasn't an Outland, but we have seen the Naru in more places than just Naru lands. So it doesn't have to be specifically that they enter the domain of light, if that makes sense.
Okay. A further extension to the broker questions. What is Khadgar and Medivh up to, and are the brokers going to steal the 5 pillars?
Khadgar's chilling in his tower, fixing up the place, making sure to keep the artifacts there. I think he's even having conversations with Medivh, because there was the Rephion questline in Battle for Azeroth with the whole cloak, where you try to track down Rephion just before they got the cloak. You go to Karazhan and you read the notes in the Journal of Rephion. I think he mentions that Khadgar is having conversations with the echo of Medivh in Karazhan. The brokers going for the pillars. I mean, Azara stole one of the pillars. Apparently, we don't keep him under lock and key for that much, so why not? Let the brokers have the other ones. Who cares?
If the jailer can't get out of the Maw, then how was he able to get Anduin into Bastion? Since before, the only people that could leave the Maw had to be accompanied by us, the Maw Walker.
I think this has to do with the idea of the bonds of the Maw weakening. Once upon a time, the jailer was all locked up and chained inside, and he wasn't even able to wiggle out of his chains. Right now, he's just running around and dominating the Tau Torghast, making weapons, plotting, scheming. He is slowly but surely gaining power and souls. Therefore, the bonds of the Maw are weakening. I think that's also the reason why our covenants now feel confident enough to come with us into the Maw, because of those bonds being weakened.
Okay. Any chance after this expansion ends that we get our beloved world soul to finally wake the F up? Or must we first go through a light expansion and then a void one and then?
I would have loved to see Azeroth wake up at the end of Battle for Azeroth, to be honest. At the end of Legion could have been cool as well. I mean, it could be great. A jailer versus Azeroth Titan. Please sign me up. I would love to sit back and eat some popcorn and just see those two duke it out. Time will tell. Only Blizzard will know whenever that happens.
Where is Valyra Sanguinar, for that matter? Isn't Anduin her #1 priority since Varian perished?
Valyra Sanguinar. Ooh, when is the last time that we saw Valyra? I think it was talking to Shah, telling him to take a break. Working as liaison between the Alliance and the Horde, passing on messages. Yeah, she would be a great agent to show up into the Shadowlands and try to save Anduin. But then again, you gotta wonder, how much can someone like Valyra do when not even the Maulwalkers or Bolvar are capable of getting him out of there, right?
Right. Do you think that the jailer is aware of the potential power a corrupted Azeroth of the corrupted Azeroth world soul, and could he possibly use that to his advantage in any way?
Here's a cool detail. Now just sparked back into my mind. Sire Denethrius mentioned that the jailer will claim what is his. And the jailer says, I am coming for the soul of your world. Which early speculation had like a potential connection between the jailer and Azeroth itself. Like, what is going on there? Does his betrayal perhaps create the birth of Azeroth? And is he actually I don't know, his daughter or whatever? Or is she his heart? Oh, how romantic. But so far, like, those are the small tidbits that we know with a connection between the jailer and Azeroth. We don't know if there is more to it. We don't know if it's specifically going for the soul of our world, like if that is his goal, like Sargeras before him, or if it's more in the direction of I'm coming for the entire universe, therefore the soul of your world as well. Which then also ties into the idea as to exactly why do our souls stick around? Why can't we die? Why do we connect to the first ones? Stuff to be revealed.
Do you think the Scarlet Crusade / Brotherhood is going to become a credible threat at some point in the future based on the talk about those pamphlets on assassinating Anduin?
Have you read those pamphlets or not?
I don't know how to read, so.
Okay. Well, there are like pamphlets that you can find in, I think it's Silver.
No,
just
I
outside of
don't know.
Wa-
I was just kidding. Go ahead, though.
And they talk about how Anduin and Sylvanas are like in a sexual intercourse relationship, and then that he's like a slag and a lover to the Banshee Queen and all that, and it's like Scarlet propaganda. So will there be a threat? Oh yes, the Scarlets will print out much more of this propaganda, and the Thanos will be really pissed about it. The Scarlets are unkillable. We have wiped them out like 10 times now, and they just keep on coming back. So I'm sure there'll be a threat in the future one day.
Do you think the Star in the Sky will play into this expansion? At the end of the expansion, when we do fight the Jailer, will we be aided by Illidan and the Titans or Sargeras? However, in order to get help from Sargeras, we will have to pull the sword out. So what would happen to Azeroth?
I'm not sure if we need to pull out the sword in order to get aid from Sargeras. And will that star in the sky play a part? I don't know. Like the star in the sky is like the last remnant between the rift of the Seat of the Pantheon and Azeroth itself. Doesn't necessarily have to open for the Pantheon to show up again. I mean, they could find other ways of bringing them in there. So could it play a part? Definitely. Will it? Who knows? About the sword being yoinked out in order to get Sargeras, not necessarily. What will happen to the world if we yoink it out? Right now, the idea behind it is if we yoink out the sword, it's like when you're stabbed. I don't know how often you got stabbed, but if you ever get stabbed, you just want to keep the blade in there until you find a nurse that can sew you up. Otherwise, you'll bleed to death. But we don't have a Titan-sized nurse that can like fix up the planet for us. And we kind of got bored of farming Azerite, so Magni can't really, and the whole logistics behind getting out that sword, it's a big deal. Again, if we're dealing with life, maybe they can do it for us, or if the Pantheon ever shows up again, like, oh yeah, we forgot about that, yoink. Or Azeroth itself could wake up. I also saw somebody ask, like, what will happen if Azeroth wakes up? I'm personally of the idea of just leave the planet behind like an empty eggshell instead of have the planet form around a Titan body. That way you can have Azeroth wake up. She can yoink out the sword. No biggie. She might have a little wound in her back, but that's healed up. It's great. We healed the wounds, champion. And then she can yoink out the sword and be like, swung, I'm ready.
Do you think the zones in the Shadowlands are the physical bodies of the Eternals, the same way Titans are planets? Example, the Winter Queen we see is more of an avatar of herself.
So therefore, the Eternal Ones are no. Reason in an interview, and I think this was the interview with. I've seen so many interviews. There was an interview where they asked about like is Meldraxxus alive or whatnot, and they spoke about how the zone provides whatever they need in order to keep the zone running. But they were talking about a zone, not necessarily that it's a being themselves, right? So therefore, I would say it's a zone and not so much an entity represented by the Eternal Ones.
Where's Medan?
Medan has been retconned out of existence. 404 cannot be found.
Okay, then.
And good riddance, by the way. Bye, Medan.
Okay, then. What do you think Azeroth is the Titan of? Since Blizz seems to know but has not said.
Titan Azeroth is the Titan of war because we live in a society. It's called World of Warcraft. I mean, the writing's on the wall, people.
Could you not be the Titan of crafting then?
Titan of farming useless shit.
Yeah, we would do a lot of that too, right? Do you think Anduin will trick the other covenants, or will the Kyrian warn everybody else in time? I guess more so the jailer, right?
Yeah, I mean, they said that the attack on Bastion will be quickly followed by Ardenweald, but news will spread about the Archon being attacked. Question is, like, he was looking for an Anduin to walk into Bastion, but does he necessarily need another Anduin to walk into Ardenweald? Wouldn't it make more sense to have other beings to go into Ardenweald, right? That they would trust for some reason, and then you could ponder, like, what agents does the jailer have that could go into Ardenweald? Think, for example, a Muzala, or in Revendreth we got Sire the Nephrius, but that is locked away right now. But maybe he could send something in there, you know, there could be other influences. It doesn't necessarily have to be Anduin that does the attack.
Okay. Illidan mentioned in the Demon Hunter opening quest line that he was like us and couldn't die. Do you think he has some connection to the first one?
No. Illidan's immortality came from eating a demon, or becoming so demonic that his soul would go to the Twisted Nether. And the whole idea behind demons is die on the physical plane. They're part of those magical beings. They go to the Twisted Nether, similar to how an old god potentially goes back to the realm of the Void Lords. Mortal souls go to the Shadowlands. So in essence, what Illidan did is he took his soul and he piggyback rode on a demon into the Twisted Nether. And a similar thing they do with the demon hunters. They've devoured the heart of a demon, and they pretty much, you know, they're tied to the Twisting Nether. So what happens to demons, demon hunters that need to die, they need to die in the Twisting Nether to be permitted. Now, what is interesting, if I recall right, in that similar quest line, you have like the option in order to sacrifice one of the demons instead of yourself. If you pick yourself, Illidan shows up, is like, hey, cool, you're immortal like I am. But if you pick the other demon hunter, he dies for good. So how does that work?
Maybe his soul wasn't corrupted enough.
Maybe they couldn't keep the heart down.
What is the connection between us, the champion of Azeroth, and the Waystones in the Maw and the rest of Shadowlands? How can we be the only ones who can activate them? Even the jailer was surprised about that.
Yeah, to be revealed. There's got to be a connection between us, the first ones, why exactly all these Azerothian souls are so important and show up and whatnot, to be revealed. Why? I mean, gameplay-wise, because we are the player and we pay $15 a month to play this game, and it would be really weird for us to actually die. But there will be a lore reason given.
Will we see Tyrion Fordring here, or did the light save him? And if so, then why was Uther not saved?
Well, Tyrion wasn't saved by the light. Well, I mean, Tyrion, if you recall Tyrion at the end of Wrath of the Lich King, he was like, light, give me one final blessing to shatter these bonds. And the light was like, okay, you get one more. And he got one more. He was able to shatter the bonds, break Frostmourne, save the world. So after that, the light was like, no. You asked for one final blessing, and you got it. You want to go to the Broken Shore and fight demons, that's fine. You want to pretend like you could bubble yourself, that's fine. But don't come crying to me when you're screaming in pain and agony and when you die. So, for a more serious note, the idea of being saved by the light, as I spoke about earlier, mortal souls go to the Shadowlands with exceptions. Sometimes that the light shows up and be like, okay, we'll bring you to the light domain. In the case of Uther, his soul was half saved. Part of it went to the Shadowlands because of the intervention of the light. Part of it was sucked into Frostmourne. In the case of Tyrion, maybe he just went to the Shadowlands and we haven't found him. Again, there's an infinite amount of domains. Maybe he went to souls that got tortured by the demons until they couldn't take it anymore land. That might be his own.
The reports show that Denathrius has sent spies and manipulators to Azeroth and beyond. Does this mean that these spies, hinted as being dreadlords in disguise, have literally caused and manipulated all the chaotic events in Azeroth's history dating 10,000 years and more?
And not even Azeroth, like cosmic wise. I've got a video up called The Cosmic War in Warcraft. Yeah, and that's the cool part. That the domain of death has been manipulating and infiltrating all these cosmic domains. Yeah. That's the idea behind it. That there's been manipulation of things.
Okay. I have a theory that Azeroth is becoming a mix of all of the primal forces. She's becoming void and fel corrupted, is already linked to life through the dream, is naturally a part of order. Is that a reasonable thought?
A Rainbow Titan? That would be so cool. Maybe. I'm trying to think. Like, there's a crossover a little bit. Like, you could make the argue that, for example, an Aeonar is also very much tied to the domain of life. But that's Captain Planet. That would be great. Impossible to say, but I like the idea though.
Can it be that the jailer is actually a good guy and corrupted in some way, and the leaked image that we saw before Shadowlands is his pure form, and he will heal Azeroth? Villain turned good guy. They've never done that before.
We talked about that image before. I'm really of the mindset that image was taken during NDA meeting where there was like a concept art shown. That is the image you were shown, concept art. And that concept art has been used for the game, only they used it for mobs that float around in Torghast. In the case of the jailer, decided to go a different route and make him look different. Could it be that the jailer is actually the good guy and he wants to cleanse Azeroth? I think the question was.
Mm-hmm.
I think a big point of it, of all of this, is that right or wrong, good or bad, it's all a point of view. And morality, that's been going on in Warcraft for a while. In the case of, for example, a Sargeras, he thought that he was doing the right thing. But to us, someone like Sargeras that wants to destroy the universe is a bad guy. So in the case of the jailer, whatever his motivations are, whatever he tries to accomplish, if it means that he's going to destroy Azeroth and murder everybody, to us, he would be pretty much a bad guy. So his motivations might be right, but if it means the end of all things, does that make it right? You decide, I guess.
Do you think that Sylvanas stabbed Anduin with the sword, or is it the armor controlling him? Or neither, I suppose.
It's a good question. Like when I saw that cutscene for the first time, I was still holding out hope. Like the jailer pushed it to the side, and he was the one that stabbed him. But then later in interviews, they said like, yeah, Sylvanas pushed forward with the domination, and she came this far, she couldn't turn back, so she did it herself. But the details, like, did she take a piece of Anduin's soul? Did they turn him into a Death Knight? Did they just spook him really, really hard? And is that why his hair turned white? Is it just a cosmetic upgrade that makes him look like an agent of the jailer? Is it the jailer's influence? You take off the armor, therefore Anduin is back again. Who knows? Like, those details, we're gonna have to wait for.
Is King Greymane anticipating a revolt?
No. As far as I recall.
Okay. What if Ysera ends up being the one who's going to attack the WQ, which I thought was World Quest, but Winter Queen?
Beware the Eyes of Green.
Her eyes are blue, though, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I guess she's green, but...
There's like Beware the Eyes of Green. Sorry, the enemy infiltration book has like a line about the domain of life, I recall, with the eyes of green. Beware them, and some were like, well, maybe it's more like a metaphorical eyes of green, like somebody who's really envious and jealous of the Winter Queen, something like that. There's a connection between infiltrating the domain of life, potentially Emerald Dream, a whole bunch of speculation. No, I don't think Ysera will strike out at the Winter Queen. She is more of the direction of, I'm now bound to Ardenweald. I will up my Shadowlands life in order to serve.
All right. Do you think that the Demon Hunters' assault on the Dreadlord planet, destroying their libraries, could come into play?
Hope so. I mean, there's also the cutscene with Draka, where she goes to the similar planet, if I recall right. There must be a reason for that, yes? Maybe? Gonna find out.
Is there any chance that by the end of the expansion we send the souls that were wrongfully sent to the Maw back to their rightful place, such as the Red Ridge Kyrian storyline comes to mind?
Hope so. Like, where's Ben? Poor Ben. As well as a lot of people have observed this, and it's really dumb. And I hope at some point they could give like a spin to it. You know how all those souls end up in the Maw, right? Like all those souls end up in the Maw, and everybody's like, oh no, all the souls end up in the Maw, and the jailer is getting power, and no more anima for any of us. Who is dropping those souls in the Maw? The Kyrian. They're the ones who are carrying these souls, and they're not stopping. It's like, yeah, it's part of the purpose, I suppose. I don't know. I just work here, okay? My job is to just ferry souls from one place to the next. I'm not the one who's supposed to be judging them. If the Kyrian would just be like, oh, we're going to stop now, the jailer would no longer have souls. What?
What?
Why don't the Kyrian just stop doing that?
They can't. They're held by nobility and the way, the path. What do you think about Varimathras being the one that broke the Arbiter when we killed him in Antorus?
Varimathras being a demon, I doubt it.
Could Varian be with Odin and not in the Shadowlands?
So that Odin saw like this worthy soul die, and he picked him up and brought him to his halls. I mean, it would have been a really quick pickup, though, right? No, because I don't know. I mean, could he? Yes. Will he be? I hope not. I mean, it's a character like Varian. Why would a Blizzard ever decide to turn Varian into a Valajar, right? They would have to keep him on as a Varian. As well as the train station scene, there's like a cutscene where Enwin talks to Daddy.
There was an image of ghost ships heading into Stormwind a while ago. Looks like Ashara forces. Is this something that's still possible, especially with Ashara showing up in the Shadowlands?
No, well, no, because that image was tied. Oh, I'm throwing everything aside. That image was tied to the idea of this is going to be the Shadowlands pre-event, and there were a couple people out there. They were like, "Oh yeah, my Blizzard friends. Oh, they've guaranteed that this is going to be the entrance of the Shadowlands. This is what's going to happen. Trust me, it's not a fake image. This is real. This is Shadowlands, people." And people are like, "Oh, cool. If you got a Blizzard friend, then that's the thing that's going to happen, right?" Never happens. So, could there still be ghost ships in Stormwind Harbor at some point? Absolutely, but not the way that picture was sold back then.
Do you think Lothraxion will betray the Naru in Revendreth just to get Denathrius' key?
Lothraxion will betray the Naru. I think a better question is, would Lothraxion be betraying the Naru, or would he hold true to what he's always been? Is he the Dreadlord that's been sent in to infiltrate the Man of Life?
Do you think there's any chance to see Duratan?
Yeah, my take on it, you remember the mount that Drucker rides on? In Meldraxxus, you can decide what kind of creature you become. For me, Duratan is Drucker's mount. Yeah.
Okay.
I have nothing to support it. I just like the idea of she's riding around on Duratan, but that is another motivational thing that's connected to the Shadowlands. Because like it's all fine and dandy to get sorted into different domains to perform like different jobs, right? But what if you love somebody really, really much and you just want to spend your afterlife together, and then there's this arbiter that's like, nah, you go to Meldraxxus, you go to Bastion. That's so unfair. And there's even a rare, like a mob you can find in Bastion that has a little note, a Kyrian that's like, my love, despite them taking away all my memories, I remember you. And it's like, oh. So it's actually a topic that they thought about, which is kind of cool.
Do you see Ashara and Xal'atath having any role? We already talked about that one, Tally. Ashara, I guess Ashara not so much. Ashara and Xal'atath having any role in the Shadowlands? We've touched on Xal'atath a bit already.
I would love it if Xal'atath is like the Dreadlord-esque kind of being that was sent in to invade the domain of the Void Lords, and because the Void can see like 1,000 different truths, she was caught, and therefore they prisoned her by putting her in the Blade. Ashara, I mean, they kind of done goofed Ashara's storyline in Battle for Azeroth, in my humble opinion. Like, we were waiting for the reveal of Ashara for like 10,000 years. And we got Eternal Palace, where an old god literally got free out of its prison for the first time ever since the Day of the Titans, and it came across as like a wet fart. And then Zoff was free, and then
we killed him.
2 zones were invaded, and it's like, woo, spannend. So, Azora maybe, but you know, we'll see.
Who is the Clockmaker?
There's a Clockmaker now. What?
I'm not sure if troll question or not, or something I haven't heard about.
No, I saw it fly by in the chat earlier as well. Is there been like an interview where they mentioned the Clockmaker by chance?
Let's follow up on it. Is it possible that we'll be able to bring back some of our dead back to life when we leave the Shadowlands?
Yes, but I think a better question is would we want to? Like, there's already a running joke in Warcraft in the lore that nothing stays dead forever, so therefore being dead is meaningless. Take, for example, a Killfuss, merely a setback. And now with the Shadowlands, they were just like, F it, we're just going to open up the afterlife, go party with your favorite dead people. Would we really want to bring those back into the storyline? I don't know. Like, a Vol'jin is kind of cool, because they did Vol'jin dirty, so Vol'jin is kind of cool. But the rest of them, like... Killfuss? Again? We bring Killfuss back?
It's been a while.
It's been a while. Oh, why not? I mean, death becomes meaningless if you just open up the Shadowlands and you just bring everybody back, you know?
All right, guys. We're going to have to cut this off soon. It's been like an hour, 10-minute long Q&A. Well, I'll take just a couple more here, and then, if you have any more questions, you know where to find Nobbel. All the socials have been displayed for the past 2.5, 3 hours. Go check him out on YouTube, etc., and his stream, of course. But what do you think Bonsomdi really wanted from the Winter Queen?
I'm not allowed to answer that question on Twitch. Otherwise, you'll get your channel banned. So next question, please.
Okay. Are the Wild Gods actively figuring out things or just doing their own thing for now?
Sorry, are the WoW devs what?
Are the Wild Gods actively figuring out things or just doing their own thing? Who are the Wild Gods?
Wild Gods?
You mean the old gods?
Wild Gods? Are the Wild Gods figuring out things or doing their own things? What?
I presume you meant old gods.
The Clockmaker is rumored to have made basically everything in the Cosmog. First ones, light and whatnot. Okay. It's the first time that I hear the term first ones. As far as I'm aware, we still have like the light and void clashing with each other, and that created the Cosmos. But if there's a Clockmaker being introduced, that could be kind of cool. Yeah, I'm not sure like Wild Gods are Loa, but are they figuring things out or doing their own thing? Like, I don't really understand the question.
Can't it be both? What do you think of Deathwing in Shadowlands?
Deathwing has been naughty, though. I mean, he's been corrupted, but at the same time, he's also been really naughty. So, Revendrev, that's my judgment. But again, it comes down to infinite amount of domains, right? Maybe there's like an old god corrupted dragon domain.
Okay. Let me see here. Okay. 3 more questions, guys. Sylvanas will be the last one. And if you have any more after that, just you can send them to Nobbel. He will love you for it. He does this all day long, but I got to open my vault chest at some point today. Number 1, do you think that, quote, the Golden One claims a vacant throne, the Crown of Light will only bring darkness, is relevant in Shadowlands?
Potentially. I mean, those things, if you're curious, I do have a video called The Whispers of Il'gynoth, Speaker of the Shadowlands, where I go over these whispers in relation to the Shadowlands. When it comes to the Golden Throne, we've got a Tyrellian that's been placed upon the throne in Stormwind. He and his missus in the novel Shadows Rising been going around Illyria using the void to tie people up, and Tyrellian using the light to chain people up, and then Illyria used the void to like infiltrate their mind in order to try to track down Sylvanas. Those two are hardcore, man. And if there's somebody that's supposed to be pushing more towards a more hostile alliance, Tyrellian could definitely fulfill that part. Think, for example, listening to a Lofraxian that might be connected to the Shadowlands. That could be a thing. Alternatively, There's also the crown of Lordaeron that's been rediscovered in Explore Azeroth. So there was like the crown of King Terranus Manifield II, Arv's daddy. In the cutscene, it goes like plum, 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 on the ground, it's bloodied. That one's been rediscovered in the book, which might relate to a Kalia Menethil being crowned. And Kalia has been resurrected in the light. And there's another whisper which goes into the direction of the light has made a bargain with the enemy of all. Something like that. And people are wondering, well, did the light bargain with Death in order to bring back Kalia? Therefore, Reaper agent or something that could connect to all of this. But when it comes to the Whispers of Il'gynoth, they're very difficult to place. Even now, when something like Legion and Battle for Azeroth is done, people are still wondering, well, 5 keys. Is that 5 keys that the jailer after? Are they the Pillars of Creation? Are they this? Are they that? It's really hard to place them.
Okay. Serious question. Do you think Azeroth is happy with Magni's job as the speaker, or will she seek a new speaker and leave Magni unemployed?
Magni has been the greatest speaker she could ever wish for, right? Magni, he talks to her and he's like, shh, it's okay. I have a daughter called Moira, but I don't really care. I like you a lot better, Azeroth. So, no, Magni has been the perfect speaker she could have ever wished for. And champions have healed the wounds for him. He was able to support his Azerite addiction. It's been great. Magni forever. I miss him a lot.
Said no one ever. Final question. With N'Zoth and the Void purged from Azeroth, theoretically, Nosdormu will be corrupted and create his army? Question mark. His MIA from a long time ago, now no? He has been MIA for a long time now, no?
Nosdormu is an interesting one. So N'Zoth and the Old Gods being cleansed theoretically, I mean, there is the idea of N'Zoth just put us in a dream state, and what we saw in Battle for Azeroth is just a lucid nightmare, which some people really want. But as it stands right now, lore-wise, we have cleansed Azeroth of the Old Gods infection. She has been purged. According to Magni, according to Blizzard interviews, she has been purged of the Old Gods infection. Now, what's interesting about the Nosdormu-Muruzan paradox is that Nosdormu is the bronze dragon aspect, the one that goes over time. Moruzand is his name with the letters scrambled. Moruzand is his infinite counterpart. And what happened is that Nosdormu, when he was made the aspect of time, they showed him the moment of his demise. And they told him, look, this is how you're going to die. You get powered over time, but here's the clue. Job. You need to keep the timeline pure. And even though you have like cosmic massive abilities, and even though some small things can be altered, your death is guaranteed. This is how you're going to die. Cool, said Nosdormu. This is my job. I'm going to keep the timeline pure. Time passes on, and at some point in the timeline, the Old Gods were able to trick Nosdormu into subverting his mortality and abusing his powers to stay alive, which in turn created Moruzand and created the Infinite Dragonflight. A couple of problems with that. He's no longer an aspect after the events of the Cataclysm, and there are no longer Old Gods on the planet, so how are the Old Gods going to trick him? Might still be something in the future, maybe. Because we know that Nosdormu has to become the Moruzand as we see him as, because they had the brilliant idea of adding voice lines in the end time dungeon where Nosdormu was like, yep, this is the moment how I died. This is what the Titan showed me. This is the moment why I was supposed to die. So now they made this loop that needs to happen and a whole other story in between. Yeah. So, good luck.
Or maybe they'll just sweep that one under the rug and we'll all move on.
Time, wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey. You know, but I mean, it's not impossible. At some point, they could still have Nosdormu run into Old Gods and they'd be like, hey, you want to do something cool? And Nosdormu is like, I'll do something cool. And he becomes Moruzand. Like, you could argue that Moruzand is an alternate version of Nosdormu, but that doesn't compute with the line of Nosdormu is going to die like this. Our Nosdormu needs to become Moruzand in order to find his true demise. That's what's supposed to happen.
Okay. Well, Nobbel, it's been a pleasure.
As always.
Before heading off, if you want to let everybody know where they can find you one more time, because I'm sure some people still have a lot of questions. I mean, I could sit here and listen to yours all day.
Right, where can you find me? All over the internet, pretty much Nobbel87, you'll find me. I got a YouTube channel, a Twitter, a Facebook, an Instagram, Twitch channel, all that good stuff. Now say that you're looking for a fun community in order to discuss lore, and not just me, because I'm just little old me, and there are people out there that know way more than I do. I do have a Discord channel. So by all means, come join us on the Discord, hang out, ask questions. They are fantastic places to hang out, and the people on the Discord are really lovely as well. When it comes to the things that we talked about today, I would really recommend checking out that story of the Cosmic War in Warcraft, which touches a whole lot about the Dreadlord infiltration. And again, coming Monday, I'm going to do my take on what do I think is going on between Sylvanas, Jailer, Anduin. Good stuff. And thank you for having me once again. This was great fun.
That was my pleasure, and I'm definitely looking forward to that video. I know, dude, it's always a pleasure to have you. It's super fun, these conversations. I guess the next one will have to be whenever the next lore bomb hits, which is probably going to be sometime post 9.1. I mean, unless something big happens, you know.
When was the one that we did before this then? Was it like pre-Shadowlands?
We've skipped a bit. We did have a pre-Shadowlands one, but we should have had one this tier, but we didn't. So now we're like fast forwarding to 9.1, so we skipped over. So we'll have to do one in 9.1 for sure, once we start leaking in info about 9.2. Because once 9.1 hits PTR, there's definitely going to be not only stuff answered and needed to be talked about then, but probably a lot of hints towards what's coming in 9.2 in some form or another. So we'll definitely...
Like 9.1 is going to drop some bombs. Question though, is 9.1 really going to take like 5 to 6 months to do? Like what are we going to do in between?
To do well, I mean, their major patch cycle is usually about 5 to 6 months, right? So if that were true from launch of the expansion, we should be seeing 9.1 live in May. Now I'm a bit skeptical. I'm thinking
March,
like
May. Okay.
I'm thinking because we had December, right? It came out in late November. I'm a bit skeptical. I'm thinking like maybe June-ish. But probably I would think that we're going to get 9.1 PTR, and keep in mind PTR. Not only bugs and all that, but they have to go through all the raid testing encounters and blah, 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 which then will tell us, obviously, who the other 5 bosses are. Should be probably end of March, right? If they said very soon after 905. 905 is going to be in March sometime, probably first half. So then we'll get, should get 9.1 PTR.
Oh, okay.
Soon.
Cool. I need to read up on what 9.0.5 actually brings.
Not a whole lot, Nobbel. Not a whole lot. Valor points. There you go. You want to farm some Valor points?
Oh, Valor points for gear that I'm going to replace in the next patch.
Valor points for gear that doesn't apply to your gear now, so you have to refarm the gear first. Don't forget. But yeah. So nonetheless, Nobbel, it's been a pleasure. We'll keep in touch. I'll have you on. I mean, as soon as there's something to talk about, unless you want to just come on and talk about anything. Always willing to listen to your voice.